Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has passed him by as his time is over. Now he attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world, and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it. And check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 4. Nobody's side but my own. Arlong looked long and hard at the expression on Naruto's face. Who do you think you are, Uzumaki? You're out of your element here, boy. Naruto shook his head slowly. No, I'm actually right in my element. I was born for this kind of thing. He looked around at the mermen standing between him and Arlong. You might want to tell your gophers to get out of my way before they lose a limb. I have no problems killing every last one of them to get to you. Arlong laughed loudly. You have quite a bit of courage for a puny human. Boys, show him what courage gets you around here. Give him the treatment we gave the last two losers that came in here. The mermen all began to slowly move in on Naruto threateningly, pulling out flintlock pistols and blades. Johnny and Yosaku watched as Naruto simply stood in place while the mermen drew ever closer to him. Yosaku turned to his sungles-clad friend. What do we do, Johnny? Naruto Aniki is in real trouble. The villagers all stood behind them and the cage bunshin Naruto posted to keep them out, crying out to let them in to help him fight, but they simply stood in place. Nojiko ran up to the front and looked one of the clones in the eye. Let us in. He's all alone in there, he needs help. The clone smiled at her and placed its hand on her cheek, stroking it in a calming fashion. Calm down, Nojiko-chan. Boss wouldn't have done this if he didn't know what he was doing. He just doesn't want any of you to get hurt, that's all. Nojiko snapped out of the trance that the clone's hand had put her in, and he's going to let himself get killed all alone because he doesn't want us to fight and get hurt. The clones all started to laugh a bit. No, he's not worried about the mermen hurting you all. He's worried about him hurting you himself. He doesn't want any of you to get in the way while he cleans house of all the small fry. The clones looked up and smiled. Hey, you guys are late, the boss is about to start. Luffy, Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji looked inside past the clones to see Naruto facing down a couple dozen fishmen. Usopp freaked out at that sight. What is he doing? Is he insane? A little bit. Was the admittance of Naruto's clone. Yeah, boss is crazy, but we're the best kind of crazy. Sanji pulled the cigarette from his mouth. What kind is that? The clones all grinned fairly, the unpredictable kind. By the way, you might want to get out of the way of the gate. Naruto started flying through hand seals at a rapid pace, confusing the mermen who had never seen such a thing before. Naruto eventually stopped and held one of the seals. I hate Suiten ninjutsu, so many hand seals. Suiten. Daibakufu no Jutsu, water release. Great waterfall technique. Upon hearing the name of the technique, Arlong started to laugh uncontrollably. You think you can make a waterfall? What an idiot. Naruto simply kept a straight face until he heard a noise sounding like swelling water growing louder and louder. A smirk appeared on his face as suddenly a MIV wave came spilling over the main gate of Arlong Park that the ships were to come through. The mermen watched in horror as they were hit with the full force of Naruto's tidal wave caused by his jutsu. The torrent of water crashed around within the gates of the fortress until finally spilling out into the bay, delivering many mermen into the drink. As they all swam to the surface, a few were dead from the blunt force trauma of being hit by a tidal wave, but there were a few survivors. Is that all you've got? A little water? Or mermen, you fool. I know. The mermen couldn't hide their shock as they saw Naruto walking on the surface of the water towards them, hands going through more hand seals at a pace that back in his days in the elemental nations could be construed as leisurely. I'm not done yet, we're just getting started. I still have to dispose of you lot once and for all. Suiten. Kippari no Uzumaki, water release. Whirlpool of finality. Naruto kneeled down and placed his palms under the surface of the water. Slowly an eddy began to form that began spinning the mermen. As they tried to swim away, they found that the pull of the whirlpool was getting stronger and stronger before finally the depth of the whirlpool was deep in MIV. The mermen were all ed to the bottom of the attack when Naruto finally pulled his hands up. There was a trail of water leading from his hands to the surface, before he finally clenched his fists and broke the link between him and the whirlpool. The water then imploded sharply, leaving no sign of any of the mermen that were just a moment ago on the surface. The water settled and returned to its normal state. Naruto turned and started making his way back inside of Arlong Park via the waterway, whistling to himself the entire way. Everyone watching him dispose of the mermen were all wide-eyed at the display out in the water. Luffy snapped his hand out to point at Naruto. Naruto is awesome. He's not the ship's hobo, he's like a super hobo. The villagers watched Naruto stride slowly back into Arlong's base as water poured from the east gate entrance, draining Naruto's first jutsu that started the fight. Who is this guy? He can beat up Arlong's men so easily and go right back for more. He can walk on the water and cause whirlpools, and you're thinking about him beating Arlong's men. He must be some kind of lord of the seas or something. The clone stood steadily in front of the gate after the rest of the water drained. Genzo stepped forward. Why? What is the reason that you are risking your life in this fight? Why is this so important to you? The clones gave him a stone glare. That bastard made Nami cry. I will never let those close to me suffer ever again now that I truly have the power to do something about it. If you have a better reason for me to want to get involved, then please by all means share it with me and I'll make sure the boss gets the message. Arlong growled as he watched Naruto re-enter his facility carelessly. Hachi, call our little pet to deal with him. Hachi, or Hachin, an octopus fishman, stepped forward. Come on out, my powerful monster. Momu. I've got an extra snack for you today. Naruto turned around as he saw something coming towards him, barely submerged under the water. Eventually it emerged in front of Naruto, a mivcow-like sea-dwelling creature. Naruto raised an eyebrow as it towered over him, looking down angrily. Naruto's quirked before he yelled out to Sanji, hey chef boy, so if I kill and eat this thing, would that make it beef or seafood? Sanji shrugged, I don't know, I was actually wondering that myself. Why don't you try it and I'll find out? Luffy pointed at Momu. Hey. We beat that thing up when we first got here. Naruto watched the monster cower somewhat at the sound of Luffy's voice. You're scared of Luffy? Then you really don't want to fight me. Tell you what, since you're more like their pet, I'll let you go, just stay out of my way. Momu looked at a grinning Luffy, then at a grinning Naruto. Luffy, Naruto, Luffy, Naruto. It finally turned around to head back out of the base, deeming discretion is the better part of valor. Naruto's grin never sped. Good choice. Momu, what are you doing? Arlong's voice stopped the creature cold in the water. Okay, if you really want to go, I won't stop you. Just go, Momu. He spoke in a threatening tone. The monster suddenly turned on Naruto with intent to kill. Moo. Naruto shook his head with a frown on his face as the sea cow bared down on him. You picked the wrong side to be afraid of, my friend. The sea cow launched at Naruto and dove at him in an attempt to devour Naruto in one bite. Arlong laughed as he watched his pet dive onto Naruto's body. Nojiko watched the Miv-sea creature seemingly devour Naruto in one bite in horror. He had been the first person she had met from outside of the island that had been ready and willing to fight for them. No, and Naruto-kun, tears started to fill her eyes. The clones watching her break down frowned. Nojiko-chan, stop crying, please. It's okay. She looked up at them with teary eyes. How can it be okay? He just got eaten by that monster. The clones shook their head. If he was eaten, then we would have been dispelled. He's not dead, he's just milking it. Look underneath Nojiko-chan. Nojiko blinked her tears away. What? The sea cow surfaced, looking around in a confused fashion. It hadn't tasted anything other than water, so where did the human go? In the immortal words of my old sensei, you really shouldn't let your opponent get behind you all the time. Naruto stood behind the sea cow with an evil grin on his face and his right hand with a spiraling blue orb of power in it. Ahem. Kanahagakure Hiden Taijutsu Ugi. Senengarashi. Sano Rasengan Hidden Leaf Village Ultimate Hidden Taijutsu. 1000 Years of Death, Rasengan style. Naruto shoved the blue ball where the sun doesn't shine, though it was unknown how he was able to do it to a fish. Thinking about it simply gave people terrors, so they stopped wondering it. The Rasengan carved into the Miv-seiko's backside, forcing it to cry out in Miv pain as Naruto sent Momu flying into the air at Arlong Park, knocking out the very top of the tower with its body and having it continue on into the distance. The rubble from the tower fell down and actually crushed a few mermen to death. Naruto simply stood on the water looking at his destruction with a somewhat pleased look on his face. Are you done throwing the weaklings at me yet, or did I kill them all? I can do this all day Arlong. Who is this boy? What kind of powers are these? I don't know of any Akuma no Mi that grants such immense power in combat. Genzo watched Naruto utterly decimate the majority of Arlong's forces with little actual effort whatsoever. Clones all shook their head. No Akuma no Mi. What is it with you people thinking that a stupid fruit gave boss that power? You couldn't be any further from the truth on that front. Zoro looked at the clones. Well then, how did he get it? I've never seen anyone do anything like this in my entire life. How can anyone be as strong as to manipulate the sea itself? The clones grinned. Good old-fashioned hard work is all I can say. Countless years of effort went into our training to hone our skills in order to fight foes far beyond our capacity. Zoro shook his head in disbelief. There's no way that any amount of training could get anyone to be able to make a tidal wave at will. What could you have possibly been doing to develop that kind of skill? You can't be any older than 18 years old. Naruto's clone had an amused look on his face. You'd be surprised. And yes, I did learn how to do that in the first 18 years of my life. That's a simple move compared to some of the other things I can do. Arlong growled at Naruto. Chew. Hachi. Kurubi. Kill this idiot already. Naruto finally stepped on land and looked around at the havoc he had caused. You should have just let things go as they were, Arlong. If you had let Nami leave and gather the rest of her money, I might have honored the village's request to leave you alone. Now I have to crush you. You brought this on yourself. Chu, a merman in a blue vest and brown pants, walked forward at Arlong's request. You can't beat us. We're not weak like the rest of the crew, we're Arlong's elites. Chu inhaled and spit a swallow of water at Naruto, who dodged easily. Thinking it was just a fluke, he fired again. Once again Naruto effortlessly dodged. Chu got a tick mark on his head and began firing rapid-fire swallows of water at the troubling opponent. Naruto had his eyes closed as he moved around the speedy projectiles. Slow, 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 you're also slow. Naruto finished with delivering a heavy blow to Chu's ribs, doubling him over and forcing him to spit out all of the water in his body. Naruto grabbed Chu by his face and headbutted him, cracking his skull if nothing else by evidence of the blood that began to pour from his hairline, and threw him aside. He crossed his arms in front of the rest of the fishmen. Anyone else want to get maimed before I kill Arlong? Kurubi growled at the arrogant human. Hachi, if we attack him together he can't win against us. He's just one boy. Hachin nodded and drew 6 swords for each of his arms. Got it. He can't beat us together. He rushed at Naruto swinging wildly. Takoishi Kaiken octopus foot miracle swords. Kurubi followed suit, rushing in with his hand ed in a karate stance. Hyakumegawara Seiken 100 tile true punch. They both made contact with Naruto as he burst into smoke. Out of the smoke flew a log that had been utterly splintered and obliterated by the ult of the fishmen. Kurubi and Hachin looked around for any sign of the boy. Where are you, coward? Come and fight. I'm a coward because I won't stand still and take your attack head on like some kind of brain-dead monkey. His voice sounded out all across the area. The thing you need to realize, and you already should have, seeing as how you're both pirates, is that I don't have to fight fair. The sound of some kind of metal instrument whipping through the air rang out from somewhere. Hachin saw it coming and moved in front of Kurubi to block it with his blades. However, before it got close it burst into smoke, and out of the smoke came a rapidly spinning and effing Naruto, who got past Hachin's protection and kicked him right in the jaw. I just have to win. Naruto let Hachin fall to the ground as Kurubi started ulting Naruto with his fists and feet. I've been waiting for this ever since you showed up in our territory. Naruto dodged and blocked easily enough, keeping himself from countering the blows. You've been waiting for me to get pissed off enough to come inside of Arlong Park and kick all of your ass. What a coincidence, I have too. Kurubi growled and threw a punch at Naruto, who simply stood still and caught the punch in his teeth. He bit into Kurubi's hand, causing the fishman to cry out in pain as Naruto took out a chunk of his fist. Naruto ignored his cries of pain and chewed before spitting it out. He bad his tongue with his hands. Blah, gross. I've wanted to try that since I was little and saw a guy like you. I now have to say that you mermen taste like crap. You have to be the cheapest seafood ever. Kurubi looked at Naruto murderously. I have had enough of you. This ends now. Naruto smirked. I agree, what is this again? Kurubi set himself in a traditional stance. This is the true essence of fishman karate. This punch can shatter 1,000 stone tiles and will be more than enough to obliterate a lowly human like you. Senmeigawara Seiken 1000 tile true punch. He came at Naruto with a renewed speed and thrusted his fist out with more intensity than any other attack. However, Naruto simply ended up standing on his outstretched fist. That's much better, but still, Naruto reared his foot back, too slow. Naruto proceeded to punt Kurubi in the head, snapping his neck and sending his head hanging backwards limply. Naruto jumped off of the deceased fishman's arm and allowed him to fall back, dead. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Geez. Maybe I kicked him too hard. He looked back where he saw Hachin standing back up glaring at Naruto. You killed him. Naruto shrugged. It was either him or me, and I value my life much more than I value any of yours. You guys are simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Hachin pointed all of his swords at Naruto. I won't forgive you. Naruto sighed. I really should have let Zoro fight you. He would be having a ball right now. Hachin's eyes widened. Zoro. Roronoa Zoro. Where? He was looking around rapidly for the man that had fooled him earlier. Naruto reached into his pack and flung a kunai at the merman. Hachin saw it coming and dodged it. I'm not falling for that again. However, a shadow appeared above him that was expanding rapidly. Dynamic entry. Naruto drilled Hachin with a kick in face that sent him into the concrete ground, cracking it and leaving a crater. Naruto stood up straight with a big grin and delivered a thumbs up, teeth shimmering. Woo yeah. Guy-sensei, check out my eternal youth. Naruto stopped and slapped himself across the face hard enough to draw blood from his mouth. I will never do that again. Nojiko watched the battle in awe. He's amazing, he just beat Arlong's entire crew without a hand being laid on him. And he told us the whole time that he was entirely capable of it. I thought he was just full of it, but he never seemed overconfident when he said it. Luffy grinned while he watched Naruto fight. He had to be the strongest person he had ever seen. At first he was upset seeing as how Naruto had come in and commandeered the entire fight, but right now he didn't care as long as someone was doing it. Nojiko smiled. I believe in him. I regret ever doubting him. This fight is giving everyone a new hope. Naruto took a moment to look around at Arlong Park. What once was a pretty scenic little place was now mostly rubble. The walls were crumbling, there were bodies strewn all about. Naruto had destroyed the little pool that led to the ocean. The only thing that was pretty much still standing was the main tower itself that Arlong was still sitting under. Man, I ate this place all up. Do pirates have insurance? Arlong was seeing red as he watched how Naruto was carelessly destroying his men, some random human that walked in out of the blue one day and turned his empire upside down in a matter of hours. He stood up and stared Naruto down. I'll tell you what. If you surrender now, I will spare the lives of every one of the villagers of Kokoyashi village. However, if you fight me, I will kill every last human from that wretched village. I will not spare any man, woman, or child, except my dear Nami, of course. I still need her to make her wonderful maps for me. No matter which you choose, I am going to kill you. You have caused far too much trouble for me, but you can at least spare the lives of all of the others. Naruto shook his head. How can you still believe that you have a chance? I've killed pretty much everyone loyal to you, so even if you do get rid of me, then what will you do after that? You're the captain of nothing. You have no way to actually enforce your rule over anything because you have no muscle. But even so, I already promised to kill you for the senseless pain you've caused this village and Nami-chan. You can simply save me the time and carve out your own heart now to skip the painful part where I have to butcher you myself if it would make you feel any better. Arlong bared his sharp teeth at Naruto. I'm a cut above the rest of these fools. Do you want to know why I'm here in the East Blue? Because Jinbei kicked me out of the Sunny Pirates for being too dangerous. Naruto grinned darkly. If you were weak enough to allow yourself to be kicked out, then you're obviously not that strong, are you? He looked at Arlong and laughed. You have no idea what power is. You're just a big fish in a small pond, literally. Your plan to kill everyone else has one MIV gap in it. In order to do that, you need to kill me first, and I'm sure you'll find that to be as impossible as looking both left and right at the same time. Naruto then made a kage bunshin and made it look left while he looked the other way, but of course nothing is impossible for me unlike you. Arlong growled and grabbed a handful of water before throwing it at Naruto's cage Bunshin, dispelling it and getting a frown from Naruto. Now that wasn't nice. But you should know something very important before we fight Arlong. Arlong picked up another handful and threw it at Naruto. The ball hit him as he burst into smoke. Right then, Arlong got drilled in the face with a punch that sent him flying through the bottom floor wall of his tower. Naruto cracked his knuckles and walked towards the hole in the wall. I never make just one cage Bunshin. Nami came upon the scene of the rest of the villagers watching something inside of the walls of Arlong Park. There were people crowding the gate and people climbing on top of the wall to look inside at what was going on. Nami slowly came forward. What's going on? The villagers turned with excitement in their eyes. Nami, the guy that you brought to the island is destroying the Arlong pirates. He's just beaten every last one of them. Nami ran ahead of them all. What? Really? She reached the front where she saw her sister looking on in awe. Is he really? Nojiko nodded. Yes. He just walked in and started fighting. They haven't been able to lay a hand on him thus far. She wiped at her eyes. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Where was Naruto-kun years ago? If only he could have come sooner. Nami. The girl in question looked to where she saw Luffy sitting on the wall with a huge grin. It looks like you aren't a part of Arlong's crew anymore, Nami. So how would you like to come with us? Nami's eyes widened. Even after all of this, Luffy still wanted her on his crew. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't. Luffy turned back towards the fight. You don't have to answer right now. Naruto's still busy fighting for you and I want to see what he can do firsthand so we can wait for your answer. Nojiko smiled at Luffy's words. You really have found some great people, Nami. Arlong stepped out of the rubble of his building and towered over Naruto, who had been walking towards him. He opened his mouth as teeth fell out onto the ground. Immediately, replacements took their place. Naruto smirked. It's good to know that you can do that, because you're going to be losing a lot of those before I'm done with you here. Arlong started snapping his teeth at Naruto, who dodged before punching Arlong in the mouth, forcing him to lose even more teeth from the impact. Arlong quickly regrew his teeth. You weak humans. How dare you? Mermen are naturally stronger and more superior to you filthy mongrels. Naruto picked shards of Arlong's teeth out of his fist. Right, I'm a mongrel and you're the one that's half fish, half man. Your logic is infallible. Arlong pulled out 2 pairs of his own teeth and held them in his hands before using them as weapons against Naruto. One of Arlong's missed attacks hit a fallen pillar and took a chunk out of the stone. Naruto drew a kunai and blocked with one hand while forming hand seal with the other. A cage Bunshin puffed into existence and punched Arlong into the face before dispelling and allowing Naruto to stab Arlong in the shoulder up to the hilt. Naruto FPED away from the melee with a smirk on his face once more. Did that hurt? Good. I'm not even close to being done with you yet, you piece of crap. Arlong grunted and pulled the blade out of his shoulder. This isn't going to come even close to killing me, punk. He threw it aside and rushed Naruto down once again with his teeth weapons. Naruto dueled him using his kunai and eventually broke his guard. He took advantage of this by delivering a kick to Arlong's ribs that sent him flying into the water. Naruto sighed as Arlong didn't immediately surface. Naruto simply walked over to the face of the water and crouched down, staring into the blue water with a blank glance. Naruto eventually quirked his eye as Arlong sure had been taking a long time down there. It wasn't like he himself was going to go into the water with him. It might make the fight more fun, but he wasn't here to have a fun fight. No, he was here to humiliate Arlong and then kill him in a way that no one that would see it would ever forget. With this in mind, Naruto pressed his hands together before forcing enough space between them to form a Rasengan. Right as he finished the blue orb, he saw Arlong's fin sticking out of the water, speeding towards him. Naruto grinned and suddenly the Rasengan ended up having a sharp wind whipping around it. Arlong burst from the water shooting at Naruto extremely fast, leading with his nose, Shaku on Datsu, shark on darts. Naruto thrusted the Rasengan out with both hands. Fuden, Rasengan, wind release, spiraling sphere. Naruto's Rasengan collided with Arlong's sharp nose. There was no contest. The attacks were heavily mismatched. Arlong's attack was based off of simple physics. The combination of the natural hardness of Arlong's nose along with the momentum generated by him swimming top speed and launching at his opponent like a torpedo was impressive. However, Naruto's Fuden, Rasengan was pure energy condensed down to the size of a baseball with all of the power of a drill from each side of it. In addition to that, he added his own natural chakra, wind, the cutting element. Arlong was lucky that his nose was as strong as steel, allowing him to bounce off of the Rasengan so quickly, or else he would have been missing his entire skull. Fortunately for him, he didn't lose that much. "Gah, my nose." Arlong stood up with deep bloody cuts all over his face and the top half of his body. His shirt, needless to say, was shredded. The tattoo on his chest was completely unnoticeable due to the incredible amount of damage his upper body had taken. Blood was pouring down his entire body. He removed his hands from his face to reveal that Naruto had ripped his saw nose off at its base. Arlong's blood poured from where his nose had been severed from his face. "You filthy worthless human. I'll kill you, you son of a. I'll kill every last one of you weak humans. I'll tear you all asunder." Naruto went to clean out his ear until he realized that his hands were all bloody from carving up Arlong with his Rasengan. "I'm actually surprised that you survived that. I guess out of all of the wimps in the East Blue, you're the least wimpy. Be proud of yourself. You're the only person I've ever hit with that directly that didn't die on contact. Though I guess that nose of yours was good for something after all." Arlong slowly walked towards Naruto, dead set on ripping him in half if it was the last thing that he ever did. Naruto chuckled darkly as he strode out to meet Arlong head on. "You still have some fight left in you. You're not a coward, I can admit that. You're still a dead man though." Arlong yelled as he launched a punch at Naruto. Naruto caught his punch in his hand and pulled him in to deliver another punch that sent Arlong flying into the wall of his tower. Naruto called out to him, "Are we done yet?" His response was Arlong bursting from the walls with a long sword in his hands, a miv blade, saw-like, much like his nose. Naruto shrugged. "Okay, if that's how you want to play, then that's cool with me." Naruto pulled out a sealing scroll and wiped some of Arlong's blood from his hands onto it before it shrouded him in a puff of smoke. "You think that sword is shark-like?" The smoke cleared to reveal Naruto resting a miv sword on his shoulder. The blade was totally wrapped down. "Come on down then." Arlong charged him and swung his blade at Naruto, who pulled the wrapping off of the top of the sword and clashed with Arlong's blade. The merman's eyes widened at the appearance of the weapon. It looked to be completely covered in scales. "What kind of freaky sword is this?" Johnny, Yosaku, and Zoro watched Naruto's actions with interest. Johnny pointed out at Naruto. "Naruto Aniki is a swordsman." "Zoro Aniki, why didn't you tell us about that?" Zoro shook his head. "I didn't know. I've never even seen him use that before. What kind of sword is that anyway? I've never seen anything like that in my entire life." Naruto grinned. "Allow me to introduce a weapon I obtained a long time ago. Samahata. And in the words of the guy that used to wield this thing, it doesn't cut." Naruto swatted Arlong's blade away and slashed the weapon down across his shoulder and chest. "It shreds." Naruto dragged it down and watched it carve into Arlong's chest deeply with the jagged scales. Naruto swung the blade again, this time catching Arlong crossways in the torso. As he cut into him, he sent him flying once more into the top floor of his tower. Naruto jumped up inside of the mess he had made during the fight and looked around at a room filled with maps and sketches of other cartography-related things. "What room is this?" As if he didn't already know. Arlong picked himself up using his sword as support. "This is the room where I keep the maps that Nami has spent 8 years writing. It isn't difficult for a merman to research navigation, but it's so hard to find a good navigator. Out of all of the people I've sought out around the world, there is no one that can write a map as accurate as her. She's really quite talented." He pointed his blade at Naruto. "I won't allow anyone else to use Nami's talents except for me." Naruto held Samahata over his shoulder. "Use. What the do you think she is? Just a tool to you." Arlong spit blood onto the ground. "She is the best navigator I've ever seen. Despite being of your puny species, she's also a tricky little one. I plan to keep Nami in this room writing my maps until she dies. If she needs food, I will get it for her. If she wants any dress, I will buy it for her. I will give her anything she wants as long as I can keep getting these maps from her." He gave Naruto a bloody evil grin. "Because we are friends." Naruto frowned as he looked around and set Samahata to the side before making a few hand seals and putting his fingers to his Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball jutsu. Naruto immediately set fire to the nearest desk with maps stacked on top of it. Arlong's eyes bulged out. What do you think you're doing? Arlong moved to stop him. Stop now. He found Naruto's fist buried right in his belly. No, he choked out weakly. My maps. Naruto sunk his fist into Arlong's body up to his wrist. You made her write maps for you for 8 years. You took a little girl's mother away from her and ripped her away from her sister and village for a few god maps. Arlong desperately sunk his teeth into Naruto's neck to kill him. However, Naruto barely flinched as the blood ran down his neck. I need to destroy this place. I need to destroy anything that links Nami to you and your despicable acts to let her move on. Arlong spoke as he stayed latched onto Naruto's neck. I am Arlong, the strongest pirate in the East Blue. There's no way that a human like you can defeat me. I won't accept it. Naruto gave Arlong a chilling smile. You don't have to accept your death to die. By all means, haunt me when you're gone. You won't be the first dead face to stick in my dreams. Naruto pushed Arlong off of him, ignoring the blood from his neck, shoulder wound running down his sage coat. Arlong snarled and ran at Naruto before jumping at him while rotating wildly with his teeth open. Shaku on Tusu, shark on tooth. Naruto formed a Kage Bunshin and held out his hand with a Rasengan in it as the Kage Bunshin formed a Rasengan, forcing it to grow even bigger. Naruto waited until Arlong got right within range before slamming it right into the back of Arlong's head. Odama Rasengan, Great Ball Spiraling Sphere. Naruto's attack drilled Arlong through the floor and Naruto powered him through each and every floor, sending him all the way to the ground floor. Everyone watched as the top floor caught ablaze. Nami gasped, knowing immediately which room this was. Countless flaming papers began floating down from the building. As they began to land, tears started to fill Nami's eyes. Thank you, Naruto. With a loud and violent crash, finally the entire building came down as the floors folded in on themselves, sending floor after floor collapsing to the ground. Smoke and debris flew from the destroyed building and obscured the scene of the wreckage from view. Naruto, Naruto-kun, Naruto Aniki. Everyone that had known this man in some way yelled for him as they all ran inside of Arlong Park to search for him. Genzo looked around with his police hat covering his face. There is no way that any human could have survived that, no matter how tough they are. The villagers were all watching with shocked expressions. Arlong Park has fallen, but where are Arlong and the other guy? Nami ran into the rubble. Naruto-kun. Ow! A pile of rubble pushed up revealing a quite filthy Uzumaki Naruto with a perturbed look on his face. My coat. Shima is going to kill me when I send this back to her. Naruto walked over to some place and reached into it, pulling up his sword. I'm sorry, Samahata. I didn't mean for you to get caught in rubble. Here, eat up as an apology. Naruto generated chakra into the blade as it purred in satisfaction. Naruto grinned. Until next time then. He then resealed it into his scroll. Naruto. Naruto looked at Luffy who had a miv grin on his face. You won. You stomped that stupid fish. Naruto smirked. Oh yeah, I'm fine. He then pointed over to a random pile of rubble. He's weirdly not. Naruto walked over a decent ways and kicked away chunks of concrete, wood, and plaster to reveal the remains of Arlong. After moving more rubble he scratched his head. Well, I can't rip his heart out seeing as how I pretty much pulverized the top half of his body. He placed his hand up as people started walking over. Man, that was overkill. You really don't want to see this. Nami walked over anyway and looked at the mangled corpse of Arlong. There was nothing above his waist. All of it was just a bloody smear on the ground. The Odama Rasengan had pretty much turned him into fishman paste where it had hit, and the fact that Naruto had drilled him at least several stories into the ground with it didn't hurt either. Naruto noticed that Nami couldn't tear her eyes away from Arlong's body, so he formed a few hand seals and placed his fingers by his Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu. Naruto incinerated Arlong's body to simply get rid of him. As she saw Arlong's body go up in flames, she turned to Naruto and gave him a tearful smile. Thank you so much, Naruto-kun. She threw her arms around him gratefully. Naruto simply held her and let her cry on his shoulder. Arlong Park has been destroyed. A miv cheer went up from the villagers at the sight of the symbol of their oppression being eradicated. However, their mirth was cut short. Stop right there. Everyone turned to see a man in a Marine's uniform that looked like a rat with men flanking him entirely. This is my lucky day, isn't it? I came to watch an interesting fight from beginning to end. No one will ever believe that an unknown boy like you would be able to defeat Arlong. or that you have any of the strength necessary to tear this place down on your own. Because of you boy, every single belly of Arlong will be mine. Drop your weapons. I, Commander Nezumi of Unit 16, will be happy to accept all of the treasure. Naruto tensed up in Nami's arms. This she noticed. Naruto-kun. Naruto got her to let go of him so that he could turn to face Nezumi with the blankest of faces. Your Commander Nezumi. The man nodded proudly. Naruto nodded in understanding, and all of the rest of you are his men and you knew full well what he was doing the entire time. The Marines all nodded but were confused. What was this kid getting at asking all of this? Fuden. Renkuden wind release. Drilling air bullet. The man directly in front of Nezumi exploded and showered him and the surrounding Marines in gore. He screamed in horror. What is the meaning of this? Do you think you can get away with tea? He was cut off by a hand being shoved through his chest. Naruto's hand, covered in wind chakra, was sticking out of his back. Naruto looked up at Nezumi with an evil grin. Whoops, my finger sped. It's just that when someone senselessly harms an innocent woman I can't control it, it's something of a little tick of mine. Nezumi let off a death rattle. You will pay for this. Naruto chuckled. You first. Naruto pulled his arm out with a wet squelch, dropping Nezumi onto the ground, and looked at the horrified Marines. Boo. The Marines all took off running as Luffy and the rest of his crew proceeded to beat them all up before letting them all run off. Naruto looked out and saw a ship in the distance. Counting down from 120, he turned towards it and inhaled deeply, a ring of a shockwave building around his mouth, and just held it until his count was done. Fuden. Renkuden wind release. Drilling air bullet. He let out a high-speed projectile of a highly pressurized air ball from his mouth at the ship. The Marines had hightailed it to their boats to row back to their ship. As many of them were climbing aboard, they saw of rippling air flying at them. The ball exploded on contact with the ship's hull, sending tons of refuse and debris flying. Genzo watched the display and gulped in fear. You killed them. Naruto shook his head. No, I killed most of them. I should kill all of them, but I won't. I'm not a monster. Why? Naruto turned towards him and looked back at Nojiko, who blushed at the way he was intently looking at her. Oh, no real reason in particular, I just felt like they needed to die. He smiled and turned to leave. Well, that was a long haul. I killed a bunch of mermen and corrupt military men, pretty good day. He walked back out from the gate towards Kokoyashi village whistling a jaunty tune. 2 days later, the night of Arlong's defeat, a raucous celebration that the whole island partook in was thrown. At the end of it, however, the hero of the day, Naruto, was nowhere to be found. Chalking it up to simple modesty, they let the issue drop and went to bed. The next day, however, found people in shock as they awoke to of Cage Bunshin carrying materials to Goza village. As they followed the clones, the people almost had a heart attack. Overnight, Naruto and of his Cage Bunshin had begun to rebuild the village, and they were almost done by daybreak. The crew and Nojiko found the real one, who was pretty much in the center of the town directing traffic. Naruto, what are you doing? Naruto turned to them with a miv grin. Oh, well, I was getting a bit stir crazy. I mean, all you guys have been doing for days is partying. I wanted to do something productive, so I decided to rebuild this village. Usopp pointed at him. Don't you ever run out of energy? Who does things like this? Naruto grinned at him. Someone that can. Johnny and Yosaku then threw themselves in front of them. Please teach us, Naruto and Ikki. Naruto blinked in surprise at the two men on the ground in front of him. What? Johnny spoke up. You were right, Naruto and Ikki. We are weak. We were completely useless to everyone the entire time. Everyone else is so strong. And our old friend Zoro, it seems as if he has left us in his wake as he gains his own strength. We don't ever want to be as useless as we were when we tried to fight for Nami Ainu again. He raised an eyebrow at the two men. Why me? I'm not really a swordsman specialist. Why not Zoro? He's more familiar with you two, isn't he? Zoro and Ikki has a dream that he has to achieve. If we were to go with him now, we would only be in his way. Please. Naruto stared at them silently for the longest time as the sounds of construction rang out around them all. He finally walked past them. Fine, but you two had better be ready to work. I won't have any weaklings training under me. I'll whip you into shape even if it kills you both. Thank you, Naruto and Ikki. Naruto walked back to Kokoyashi village. Don't thank me yet. You're going to hate me before long, I guarantee it. The night before Strafut's departure, Naruto sat out by himself. The villagers were still partying a week after Arlong's defeat and he had grown bored of that. His clones had relinquished the rest of the work of rebuilding Goza village to the survivors, saying that it wouldn't be right of him to take the right to rebuild their lives away from them too. He had returned to Arlong Park to peruse over the wreckage for anything of value out of boredom. So here's where you are. I've been looking all over the place for you. Naruto turned around to find Nami smiling at him. You haven't really been around much since the battle. Naruto chuckled as he picked through the mess. This is your home. This is your celebration. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm just picking through. Nami frowned and walked with him as he continued to pick through the refuse. So why did you do all of this for us then? You don't even consider yourself part of the crew. Naruto kept his eyes peeled as he listened to her question. Well, I'm not. I helped you because I can do whatever I want, and it just so happened that I was feeling particularly bloodthirsty that day. That kind of thing happens when someone hurts the people close to me. Nami blinked. You think we're close? Naruto nodded. Well yeah, you're a friend of mine, Nami-chan. All you had to do when we got here was ask me to, and I would have blown that place to right then and there. But no, you had to drag it out for like 2 days and cut your arm all up to get me to take the decision out of your hands. Actually, the decision was out of your hands when that whole marine robbed your house and swung Nojiko-chan. Nami cringed. You shoved your hand through his chest. Naruto picked his ear. Yep. Nami walked next to him. Do you think he felt it? Was it painless? Naruto rubbed his head. Oh Kami, no, that bastard felt every last second of it until I pulled my arm out. Trust me, getting an arm shoved into your chesting s. He growled to himself as he looked around. Hey Nami, if Arlong was a pirate then where is his ship? Don't they need ships to do nautical things? Why else would they be pirates? Nami thought for a moment. Well, Arlong's main ship was broken down to build Arlong Park. Naruto pulled at his hair. Again I reiterate, how is he a pirate again with a lack of naval transportation? I think he had a ship graveyard or something on the other side of the island. I never left with them. I always found my own way around, so I don't know. Nami shrugged apologetically. Naruto sighed. A graveyard, huh? Well, it's better than nothing. Maybe I can find a rinky-dink tub to get me far enough to get a proper ship. Nami looked down. So you're really not coming with us? I suspected as much this time. It's because of me, right? Naruto grabbed her chin and made her look at him. No Nami-chan, it's nothing because of what you did. I told you already I didn't care about that. Nami looked into his eyes with her mouth slightly ajar. Naruto shrugged to himself and moved in, gently placing his own mouth against hers. After a moment he pulled away. You're sweet Nami-chan. Nami touched her with a mild blush on her face. What was that for? Naruto smirked. Well, you just looked so cute and confused right then. I had to take my chance. You aren't going to kill me now, are you? Name shook her head with a giggle. No Naruto-kun, it's just no one has ever had the courage to do that to me before. Naruto chuckled. Well, honestly I'm still slightly wary that I'm going to catch a staff swow to the testicles because of that. I'm not, am I? Nami giggled again and shook her head. No, a thank you is the least I owe you for what you've done. Besides, it's not like I didn't enjoy it. She finished under her breath. Naruto walked around Nami, who was still standing in place, watching him circle her. But anyway, it's that I can't keep following you guys forever. You all have your own dreams and adventures to go for. This is your story, not mine. I can't just stay with you all doing nothing. I need to find something out here for me. Nami held her hands behind her back. What's your dream, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled. I had a dream, but circumstances that couldn't be helped put it out of my reach. I'm not really bitter about it though. I did everything else that I ever sought out to do, some of those things far more important than my ambition. Nowadays, who knows? I'm just content going around to break my boredom. This is actually the most fun that I've had in years. Nami raised an eyebrow. How old are you? Naruto grinned at her. How old are you? Nami got a tick mark on her head. You don't ask a lady that kind of question, Naruto-kun. Naruto's grin got wider. I'm old enough. I'm legal for you if that's what you're wondering, Nami-chan. He got a decent laugh off of the flustered look on her face. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you can actually guess my real age, I'll give you 100,000 belly. Nami's eyes got dollar signs in them. 19. Naruto started walking back towards Kokoyashi village. Nope. No fair. Nobody knows how old you are. What if I get it and you lie? Nami thought for a moment. 23. Naruto shook his head. Nope. And trust me, I won't lie, because you definitely won't get it anytime soon. 26. Naruto shook his head again. Nope. That's 3 strikes, Nami-chan. You can try again when we meet again. Naruto then shunshined out of her presence. What? Nami pouted and stomped on the ground. That's not fair, Naruto-kun, you never said I had a limit. After bidding the Strafut pirates farewell with the rest of the village, Naruto took Nojiko with him to the north side of the island to find himself a ride off of Kami Island, seeing as how commerce hadn't picked back up and probably wouldn't for quite a while, and water walking all the way to another island probably wasn't the best idea. All the way up there, Nojiko kept sneaking glances at the immortal blonde. He caught her doing it, but let it go. If she wanted to tell him what it was all about, she would. Naruto eventually eyeed Nojiko over a small ridge as his eyes widened. What? Ship graveyard, my. More like used ship superstore. Apparently Arlong did have decent little stockpile of ships to choose from, as his domination of this region of the East Blue had him taking many ships for years. As Naruto got closer to inspect them, however, he found that while there were many that looked great from afar, a lot of them had fallen into disrepair over time. Naruto frowned as he tested the wood on one of the hulls. Okay, I guess this is a ship graveyard after all. This is no good. These things wouldn't get me 6 miles off of the coast before something breaks, and I'm not good enough to restore these things. Nojiko-chan, do you have any shipwrights on the island? Nojiko shook her head. No, ships were commissioned from afar before Arlong took over. Now we're just waiting for word to spread that Arlong is dead for trade to fully return to the island. Why do you want to leave so quickly for anyway, Naruto-kun? Naruto's face twisted negatively as he kept looking at ships. I did just kill a marine officer. Even I'm not crazy enough to stick around here for retaliation. And even if I was, Kami Island would just get caught in the crossfire, and I'm not destroying this place after it was just freed just so I can fight off some glory-hound marines. Leaving is all that I can do. Nojiko bit her. Are you sure you have to go? Maybe you aren't in trouble. You did destroy the ship that was off of the coast before it could get away. Naruto shook his head. No, I didn't kill them all. I just blew the ship up. I'm sure that quite a lot of them survived and made it back to their base. And that's why I need to get off of the island. I'm a sitting duck as I am. He eventually stopped in place, forcing Nojiko to bump into him. What do we have here? Nojiko squinted. It looks like a discarded marine ship. Arlong must have defeated some of them fairly recently. Naruto grinned to himself. Oh yeah, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto created 30 clones and pointed at the marine ship. Go and make sure that thing is usable. I'm certain it is, but when you're done, take it to Arlong Park so we can fix this thing up in private. He got a unanimous cry of, "Hi boss," from his clones as they sprang into action. Nojiko gave him a fake smile as she saw him beaming at possibly getting a ship and a way off of the island. Johnny and Yosaku looked at Naruto excitedly. We have a way out of here, Naruto and Ikki. Naruto nodded as Yosaku whooped in joy. Yes. That means we don't have to wait around here to get slaughtered by the Marines. Naruto frowned. What do you mean we? I can beat a Marines, and besides they'd be after me, not you. All you idiots would have to do is pretend you don't know me. Johnny took on a pondering look. I wonder how much your bounty is, Naruto and Ikki. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Johnny. Bounties are for pirates. I'm not a pirate. But you. Naruto cut off the argument. I what? Killed a marine officer and a pirate. So what? It's not like pirates are the only ones out there that can kill officers. Besides, that guy was totally weak. He probably would have killed himself bathing in waist-deep water. Johnny and Yosaku let it drop. So is the ship ready yet? Naruto grinned. Yeah, pretty much. All the clones have to do is take all of the with the emblem of the Marines off of everything and cover it, and we're golden. They repainted the whole thing. It looks bad if my clones all thinking the same thing in their memories is anything to go by. Johnny and Yosaku jumped to their feet eagerly. Well, let's go see it then. Naruto smirked. Sure thing, guys. I can't believe it. Johnny's sungles had sped down his face slightly as he simply stared at the ship. Yosaku was much the same way. Sansungles. I know, it's just. Naruto grinned at them widely. I know, it's awesome, right? The ship was a two-mast ship that was basically the exact same size and shape of a regular marine ship, however that's where the similarities ended. Naruto had taken the debris from Arlong Park and had used it to make many training implements to be used on the deck. From human-sized targets used for long-range practice, to simple bullseyes set up near the back of the ship, to 3 7-feet concrete pillars. Apparently Naruto was a decent hand at woodworking because the wheel was in the shape of a spiral with grooves carved into it around the edges for necessary grip. The masts had been painted blue, and let's not forget that the hull of the ship was painted orange, yes orange. Orange with blue trim. Johnny and Yosaku yelled at Naruto, "You painted it orange." Naruto snickered, yes I did. You got a problem with that. I saw a ship that looked like the circus came to town, therefore I painted my ship orange. Why? Naruto raised a finger in a scholarly fashion, because orange is bad. It's an eternal truth. What was I going to do? Leave it blue like the Marines? That's like keeping a big bullseye on our backs. And painting the thing orange wasn't. Naruto turned to see Nojiko, who had an amused look on her face as well as arms full of supplies. Where in the world did you get orange paint anyway? Naruto slumped his shoulders. Why is everyone hating on the orange? He then noticed that she had her things packed as well. Nojiko-chan, what's going on? What's with all of the stuff? Nojiko gave him a brilliant smile. I'm coming with you. Naruto's eyes bugged out. I'm sorry Nojiko-chan, I think I just misheard you. Would you mind repeating that for me? Nojiko walked up to him and poked him in the chest. You heard me right. I'm coming with you. There's no way I'm letting Nami go off and have all of the adventures while I sit on this island watching the GR grow. Naruto stammered, but what about your tangerine groves? Nojiko waved off his concern. The villagers will take care of it until I can come back. Anyway, shouldn't you be happy I'm coming? All you have with you otherwise are these two idiots. She pointed at Johnny and Yosaku. Hey. They both said in defense. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well yeah, but I feel okay putting these two idiots lives in mortal danger. Hey. Naruto and Ikki. Naruto ignored them. I'm going to be doing some stupid things that only I'll be able to get away with because I'm awesome. It's going to be pretty rough Nojiko-chan. I plan on heading to the Grand Line like Luffy's crew is going to. That's where all the action is. The Grand Line. Johnny paled. Naruto and Ikki were not that strong. Naruto grinned at them evilly. I know. What did you think we were going to be doing until we got there and all the way through? Now that Nojiko-chan is apparently coming, I now have double incentive to whip your sorry S into shape and make you competent. Your S are mine until further notice. The two bounty hunters gulped. Nojiko looked at him hopefully. So I can come? Naruto nodded at her with a smile. Come on aboard Nojiko-chan. Nojiko squealed happily and sped aboard with all of her things. Naruto sighed and shook his head as he looked at the other two. Get your stuff together and get ready to go. We have places to be getting to. They looked at each other and back at Naruto. Where? Naruto snapped at them. My foot will be getting to the crux of your S if you both don't move like you're on fire, now. They were both off like a swow. Naruto sighed as he began walking aboard the ship before another presence stopped him. Gen-san. How are you? Have you come to see me off? Genzo stepped up towards the boy. Nice ship. The color could make you go blind though. Naruto had a small storm cloud over his head as he pressed his fingers together. I did my best. I think it looks really cool. It's better than Luffy's ship anyway. Genzo had sharp eyes on Naruto. I tried to keep her from going. I didn't really want her to become a pirate like her sister, but to let Nami go and not let Nojiko go would have made me somewhat hypocritical. Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his blonde locks. I'm not a pirate. I haven't even done anything pirate. Why does everyone call me one? Genzo paid his griping no mind. That girl is like a daughter to me, Uzumaki. Keep her safe and keep her happy. If I find that you have harmed her in any way. Naruto cut him off with a sharp look of his own. That's enough, Gen-san. I would never hurt Nojiko-chan, just like I would never let harm come to Johnny or Yosaku, no matter what I say to them that hints to the contrary. Whatever it is that Nojiko-chan is here for, I'll do my best to make sure she gets it. Even if it's just an adventure like Nami-chan is going to have, I can sure as do that. Rest assured, she will be fine. He gave the man a smile as he jumped onto the deck of his ship. Take care of yourself, Gen-san. I'll bring her back safe and sound. Naruto disappeared from the deck as Genzo turned to return to the village. She doesn't want an adventure, you blonde fool, she wants something else. An amused look fell onto his face. A god in battle, a fool in life, of course he would be. He let out a bark of laughter as he looked back at the orange ship. Chapter 5. The anti-pirate Johnny and Yosaku were standing on deck with constipated looks on their faces and their hands in a ram seal. Naruto sat off to the side holding Samahata. It was feeding time apparently. Despite knowing how bad of an idea it would be for this information to get out, Naruto figured he could try to teach some jutsu to his crew since he was going to be taking them into the middle of the Grand Line for kicks. The problem was anything. Naruto asked lazily while Samahata purred in his grasp from the delicious flow of chakra. Come on, it's been 3 hours, you're telling me that you can't even feel it. Johnny and Yosaku fell to the ground in exhaustion, heaving and panting. No Naruto Aniki, nothing. Are you sure we even have that chakra stuff in the first place? Naruto frowned and walked over to them with Samahata in grasp before setting it on them both. Samahata rumbled in Naruto's hand, getting a nod from the whiskered blonde. Yes, you both have chakra, but you guys never use it. That and you also didn't even know anything about it until today. I had to train for years before I could access it. There was a school for it when I was a kid and they didn't even teach you any jutsu until you were like 10 or 11 years old. Johnny and Yosaku went wide-eyed over the thought of a bunch of kids blowing things up and making tidal waves like Naruto for a school grade. Naruto ignored them and carried on. Yeah, I guess that's why more people didn't know how to do anything with chakra, because it takes a while for your body to actually get used to the concept of such a power, and that's not even talking about the training that you have to do to access it. Nojiko came from below deck. Hey guys. What are you all doing up here? Sealing up Samahata, Naruto smiled at the girl. Ah, Nojiko-chan. Come here, I want you to try something out for me. Nojiko shrugged and walked over while Naruto turned to Johnny and Yosaku. Girls naturally have better chakra control because they have less chakra, so let's see if our girl here can use hers. He turned towards Nojiko and placed her hands in the ram seal. Okay, now I want you to focus. Focus on the bridge right between your physical and mental energies. Nojiko blinked blankly. How do I do that, Naruto-kun? Naruto stepped back. A very good question. Well, the way it worked for me when I was little was just tensing up my body and then having my mind set on reaching in and pulling that energy out. Nojiko stood still for a moment before nodding and trying to pull her chakra out. After a minute or two she dropped the seal and looked at Naruto apologetically. Sorry Naruto-kun, I can't do it either. Naruto waved it off. It's okay. I wasn't expecting any of you to actually be able to do it, yet anyway. I'll just have you work with the exercises that I did as a kid before the instructors tried getting us to use our chakra. I guess that stuff had uses after all. Naruto scratched his head. Though that does narrow down what I can teach you by a lot. Naruto pointed at the two bounty hunters. Not so much you two, because all you want to be able to do is actually not with a sword. That will be easy enough, all things considered. He then turned to look at Nojiko. No, it's you that I'll be having the real trouble with. Nojiko pointed at herself questioningly. Me. But I never asked to learn how to fight. I just want to travel. Naruto nodded. I'm well aware of that Nojiko-chan, but I'm going to have enemies. I already have enemies. You're going to need to know how to defend yourself in case it becomes necessary, and chances are that it will. I don't want you to be a sitting duck waiting on one of us to save you. Nojiko frowned but nodded. I understand. Oh, I came up here to ask you something. Just where are we going next? You said we were going to the Grand Line. Do you have any idea about how we're going to go about getting there? Naruto laughed nervously and rubbed the back of his head. Ask directions. All three of the ship's other inhabitants stared at Naruto in shock when Nojiko spoke up. You mean you don't know how to get to the Grand Line and you're trying to take us there? Naruto shrunk back. Hey, it's not like I've been around in this world the entire time. I've been winging it since we left. I don't even know where we are right now. What? Naruto recoiled at the sound of three people yelling at him as he cleaned out his ear. Well, yeah. What do I look like? A comp? I can barely read a land map. What the makes you think that I can read a nautical map? Nojiko growled and immediately shoved Naruto out of the way before running inside to his personal lodgings. The immortal blonde stood up and dusted himself off. What was her deal? Johnny leaned against the mast. Naruto Aniki, it's really dangerous to not even know where you're going at sea. You could be stuck wandering forever or end up somewhere really dangerous that you can't survive. Naruto stroked his chin. Ah, I see. That's why Arlong had that hard-on for Nami-chan, making him his stupid maps. Naruto eventually stopped thinking about it and laid down on the deck. Whatever. If we're lost, we're lost. It's been 2 days, too late to change anything about it now. Yosaku's jaw dropped at how detached their leader was being. How can you say that, Naruto Aniki? Naruto shut his eyes and yawned. Well yeah, I mean this won't kill me, and it's not like I'm in a hurry to be anywhere or do anything. A series of heavy thudding footsteps kept Naruto from curling up and going to sleep in the sun before a heeled shoe crashed into his abdomen with breathtaking force. Nojiko stood over him with tick marks on her head. You're so lucky that you didn't do anything that sent us off course since we left Kami Island. I know which way we're going. Naruto pried the girl's heel from his ribs. So where are we going, Nojiko-chan, and why did you find it necessary to drop a heel on my kidney? Nojiko sighed and walked up to the wheel, turning it in the correct directions. We're heading towards Logatown. It's actually a good thing we're going that way too, since if we need to head to the Grand Line, that's the place that everyone stops at beforehand. Naruto just stared at Nojiko, who looked at him with a smirk. What? You think I'm the sister of a navigator and I didn't pick anything up from it? Naruto chuckled. Well, consider me humbled by your knowledge, Nojiko-chan. I am just a humble barbarian from the final continent, don't you know? Naruto turned to Johnny and Yosaku. Okay, it's time for me to whip your sorry ass into shape. Get over here, now. The two men shrugged and walked over to him. Okay, last chance to back out. From this point forward, if I hear any inkling of quitting from either of you, you are going to suffer for wasting my time. Johnny and Yosaku both gave him firm looks. Yosaku spoke for them both. We're not backing out, Naruto Aniki. We want to be strong for the people we want to protect. Naruto pulled out a sealing scroll and in a puff of smoke had a bunch of bands in his hands. Well, we'll start you both off with this. In the blink of an eye he had placed them on the men's arms and legs. Ready. The men looked at Naruto blankly. What are we supposed to do with these, Naruto Aniki? Naruto chuckled and made a half-tiger seal. You'll see. The bands glowed before Johnny and Yosaku crashed to the ground in a heap with a loud smash. Nojiko ran to look from where she was, being surprised from the sudden noise. Both men slowly picked themselves up as Naruto held back laughs. Hey! Don't break the wood, you bastards. Stand up. They both reached their feet with their legs shaking. Johnny's sungles were spinning down his face. Naruto Aniki, what's going on? Is this your training? Naruto nodded. Yep. If you're going to be a swordsman, you're going to want to be able to cut your opponent before they can cut you. The way to do that is to be way faster than anyone else that you could be fighting. You also need to be able to block pretty much anything and break through pretty much anything. These weights will help you with that. Yosaku was sweating. Weights. Naruto pointed to his wrists and ankles. The two men looked at the bands. How much is this? Naruto did a quick run through in his head. I would say 25 pounds. Per limb, so you're both sitting with 100 pounds. Each right now. Nojiko paled from her spot. 100 pounds. Naruto-kun, that's a lot of extra weight to be carrying around. That will kill them. Naruto shook his head at the blue-haired girl. No, it won't, they'll be fine, they're just being drama queens. A friend of mine from when I was a kid did this with weights way heavier when we were 13. These two will be fine. He turned towards Johnny and Yosaku. Okay, 100 push-ups, 100 crunches, 500 punches per arm, 500 kicks per leg, and 50 laps around the ship. Go now, and if you quit or fall off the boat during the laps, I'll strap you to the lower part of the stern and leave you there until we dock. Understood. The men groaned in agreement, irritating Naruto. What was that? I don't think I heard you correctly. Did you just say, kick our ass and tie us to the front of the boat for a few days until we man up, Naruto Aniki? They both stiffened up and dropped to the deck to eke out push-ups. Naruto nodded in a satisfied manner. That's what I thought. Now remember, push yourselves but don't pee out or something. However, Naruto made a cage bunshin. If he sees you actually slacking off, I'll have him motivate you. Nojiko frowned as she leaned on the wheel. That's cruel, Naruto-kun. Naruto walked up to the helm where the girl was leaning. No, it's not, it's necessary. If we go into there as we are and I wasn't awesome enough to keep them safe, they would get slaughtered, it's that simple. I know it, they know it, and that's why I'm doing this. There should be visible improvement by the time we get there. I need to work their basic parameters before I actually try teaching them skills. The basic stuff they know bolstered by an absurd amount of physical skill to augment it would work wonders for them. Nojiko watched them struggle to complete their push-ups. If you think it's needed, then okay, Naruto-kun. Naruto poked her on the forehead. You know, part of me is telling me to make you do it too. Nojiko's jaw dropped. But you don't want to be a swordsman, so the workout I'm giving them might not work with you. I need to find something for you to do as well as find a way for you to defend yourself. Speaking of defending ourselves, Nojiko said, ending his thoughts, there's nothing in the ship's armory. No bullets, no guns, no blades, not even any cannonballs or cannons to haul to the deck. We've got nothing. Naruto pointed at himself. We don't need cannons right now. I'm better than a cannon. I can kick everyone on a ships by myself and steal all of their stuff, before even sinking the thing, not that I would ever do anything like that. You're right though, we don't have anything, we definitely need to fix that. Nojiko sweet dropped. Is there anything else we need to fix before we go to the Grand Line? Naruto thought about it. Well, we need weapons, ammo for the weapons, more food, medical supplies, stuff for basic upkeep of this thing. We need those two to be whipped into shape before they get themselves killed. You to get some kind of way to fight on your own so I don't have to bring your pretty little head back to Kokoyashi village to get buried. People to actually help run the ship that know what they're doing. A guy that actually knows their way around this watery wasteland called the ocean. Someone to patch you all up when you get busted up, and tons of other stuff that's my mind at the moment. Nojiko sighed. Is there anything we don't need to fix? Naruto grinned at her foxily. Well, me of course. Ha ha. Nojiko stated dryly. She looked out at Johnny and Yosaku who were throwing punches slowly and heaving. Are they alright? Naruto spared them a glance and waved off her concern. They're fine. A loud thud sounded out as they both hit the deck in exhaustion. That's just them feeling the burn. Hey, get your sorry ass up. Naruto's Cage Bunshin barked at the downed and aspiring swordsman in training. What did I say about ping out? 1 week later, Naruto had Johnny and Yosaku run the same drills twice a day. Every second of their waking existence was spent training. In between the hated drills he had them fight him. Though he didn't use Samahata, or even anything with a bladed edge, no, he used a bakken, just a simple wooden sword, all of them did. With a bakken anyway he could correct their mistakes without cutting them into ribbons or impaling them. Oh, it felt like he impaled them when he jabbed them in the belly with it, but it was safer than the alternative. Naruto had one hand in his pocket and had the other using the solid piece of wood to defend himself from the attacks. Naruto sighed as he parried the strikes of the two men, too rigid, too stiff. I know it's a sword, but you two are far too unflexible in the way that you fight. Naruto blocked a swow from Johnny and kicked his leg out from under him, dropping him to his knees before palming his face and shoving him off. Yosaku came in next and swung overhead at Naruto, who cracked him in the hands, forcing him to drop the sword before pushing him down from behind. Naruto watched them pick themselves up off of the ground. You guys only really know the basics, and that's okay. The pair gripped their practice swords and gritted their teeth. Yosaku spoke up, but how can we beat someone like you without knowing any good moves? I don't know what you're talking about. Naruto twisted the sword in his hands. I don't have a single blade technique. The mouths of Johnny and Yosaku dropped at the revelation of that knowledge. But how can you be called a swordsman and have such a powerful sword if you don't even have any listed techniques for it? Naruto chuckled, because it's not about what you know you can do with your sword, it's just about what you know you can do, period. You can make your own moves, you don't need me to teach you that, all that needs is a little imagination and you two are two halves of the same brain. Johnny lowered his sword. So then what are we going to get out of all of this? Naruto raised his finger in an astute manner. What you will be getting out of training with me on your swordsmanship will be an appreciation for the unorthodox, knowledge of angles, and strength and speed. He then grinned evilly, and by the time we're done you will realize that no one will ever be as rough on you as I'll end up being. You think this is hard? We haven't even gotten started yet. Come to think of it, Naruto made a half tiger seal, forcing Johnny and Yosaku to buckle under the additional pressure. You guys are starting to move around a little too easily, 5 more pounds per limb. Naruto-kun. Naruto shunshined to the helm to see what Nojiko had called him for. What's the matter, Nojiko-chan? Do you need something? Nojiko shook her head and pointed at an island in the distance. We're almost to Logatown. I just thought I would tell you so you would stop torturing poor Johnny and Yosaku. Naruto gave her a dry look and pulled out another set of weights. Would you like to join them? I can find another practice sword too so you don't feel too terribly left out. Nojiko turned away and proceeded to the other side of the ship. No thank you. I'm fine over here. Naruto smirked and waited for them to reach land. Naruto stretched as everyone hopped off of the ship. Alright everyone. We're here to get stuff that we need for the Grand Line. I will be going off with Nojiko-chan to keep her safe and maybe find something cool for her to use. You two just walk around and do whatever you want. Consider it a way for you to adjust to your new weight. The two men glared at Naruto but held their tongues. Naruto grabbed Nojiko's hand and led her off into the crowded city. The blonde man and blue-haired girl looked around in interest. Naruto marveled at the size of the city. I never see cities this size. Even back in the elemental nations, cities never got much bigger than Konoha, and this place is bigger than that. Nojiko giggled at the look on Naruto's face. This city isn't even the biggest there is, Naruto-kun. We're going to see all kinds of amazing things on this journey, so you might as well get used to seeing marvels like this. Naruto laughed. Who do you think you're telling? You need a few more years under your belt before you start trying to tell me to expect the unexpected. Nojiko stuck her tongue out at Naruto. You're not any older than me, Naruto-kun. You might be strong, but you haven't seen everything the world has to offer yet. You're in the same boat as me. She finished with a light shove. Shaking his head in amusement, he kept looking around with a sigh. So this is where all the pirate stuff started, huh? It doesn't seem like it. This place seems really sleepy, totally way too docile to be a pirate. Wow spot. Nojiko was window shopping as she answered him. Well, this is where the pirate king Gol D. Roger was set to be executed. Apparently his final words over 20 years ago inspired the age of piracy that we're in. Naruto smiled. It's funny how single moments like that can start entire eras and movements and things. Well, not really funny, more terrifying really, how influential people can be. It's okay if the person is good, but any idiot with determination and a misguided goal can burn the world. He noticed Nojiko looking at him oddly as they walked. Sorry, ignore that. I ramble from time to time. It's okay, Naruto-kun. Nojiko yured him. You keep a lot of secrets, don't you? She noticed his eyes snap to hers. Don't worry about it. Any secret you have is your business to keep. I'm certain you'll tell everyone when you feel you need to. You're a good man, a little eccentric, but I'd rather you be eccentric than a bad guy. I'm a good guy because being a bad guy is boring, Noji-chan. Naruto said as they proceeded through the streets. From what I've seen, all bad guys do is get other people to do the stuff that makes them bad. Bad guys never do anything themselves unless they have to. They wait for the guy that challenges them to show up before they try something. Being a bad guy most of the time is static and boring, with a lot of mind games and mental chess being played. He pointed to himself. I am dynamic, a man of action. While I enjoy doing nothing from time to time, I am also bored very easily, and when that happens I look for something active to do. Shadowy dealings and behind the scenes cavorting isn't really my thing. I do what I want because I can. It just so happens that being a good guy is far more fun than the alternative. You also meet more wow women that way. Nojiko gave him an incredulous look. What? Naruto smirked. I met you and your sister doing something good, didn't I? Case in point right there. Nojiko rolled her eyes as a smile pulled at her. Idiot. Naruto simply kept moving ahead, feeling content at having made her smile. Yes. Yes, I've been called that from time to time. With Johnny and Yosaku, the two aspiring swordsmen did much the same as their shipmates, wandering around the city and pretty much looking around. None of them had any money to buy anything. Even though they saw a sword shop that was just crying out to them to head on inside, they would just be hurting themselves since they had nothing to buy any weapons, and they wouldn't be coming back even if they found something that screamed for them to buy it. The two just trudged around aimlessly and bored, and also somewhat exhausted because of their increase in weight on their bands, but at this point it was welcome compared to running laps on a moving ship and fighting their god of war captain. Man, Naruto Aniki is being a tool. Yosaku said as they walked along the docks back towards the ship. He wants us to come up with our own path in being swordsmen. What kind of stuff is that? We went with him to learn something. Like the stuff that Zoro and Ikki can do. And all we've been doing is running, getting yelled at, and getting beat up. Johnny rubbed his eyes under his sungles. I don't think he would mislead us or anything. Besides, have we been trained for real at all since we started using swords? This might be the best way for us to get better, you don't know. Yosaku yelled in exasperation to the sky, and he expects us to go to the Grand Line. Who are we kidding here? We're going to get slaughtered. He was grabbed by the arm and prevented from moving. Hey Johnny, what was that all about? Johnny was looking at a poster on a wall full of bounties. Dead or alive, Straw Hat, Monkey D. Luffy 20 million belly, a picture of a grinning Luffy, complete with straw hat and scar under his eye. Yosaku grinned. Hey, Luffy and Ikki has one. That's really high, the highest in the East Blue. Way to go. Johnny slapped Yosaku on the head. What the was that for? Johnny simply pointed at the poster he meant for Yosaku to read. Dead or alive, Seed of War. Naruto Uzumaki 55 million belly. The picture had Naruto after the fight with Arlong, covered in Nezumi's blood from thrusting his hand through his chest and a dark look in his eyes. Yosaku had the same look of surprise on his face that Johnny did. What? The Naruto tightly gripped a poster of himself while reading the bounty, Seed of War. That's the best they've got. Couldn't they have come up with something cooler? I mean, come on. Nojiko gave him an odd look. The name is the thing you're freaking out about. How about the fact that you have 55 million on your head? Why is it so high? Naruto crumbled the poster. I did pulverize the top half of Arlong's body, shove my arm through a marine captain's chest, and then blow up his ship with his men still on it. I'm surprised it's not higher. Nezumi must have been as much of a pushover as I thought. He frowned visibly. Still though, Seed of War. Nojiko shook her head. You did kill about 24 Marines in the span of 3 minutes as well as obliterate an entire base of mermen if you forgot. She gave the picture a long, hard look. How did they even get this picture? They were running from you so fast no one could have possibly had time to do it. This is true. Naruto tossed it aside carelessly. Oh well, you coming Nojiko? Naruto started walking off. Nojiko stood gaping at him. You're just going to leave it at that? Naruto-kun, this is a big deal. You didn't do anything wrong. Naruto turned around and grabbed a hold of her hand before pulling her along. I know, but it's the word of some random guy against a bunch of Marines that saw me do it. Not only that, but I really don't care because first of all if all Marines are bounty hunters or as weak as Johnny, Yosaku, and that Nezumi loser then keeping them off of my back will be a piece of cake. Boom. What was that? Nojiko wondered as smoke came from the center of town. Naruto's eyes drifted from the smoke to the girl. You want to go see? Nojiko nodded. Well then hold on Noji-chan. Naruto grabbed her and shunshined towards the town square. Johnny just kept walking along back towards their ship. Man, Naruto and Ikki has such a high bounty, that's insane. Yosaku noticed something. Hey, what is a marine ship doing next to ours? Johnny's eyes widened at the sight of a royal blue, normally colored marine ship docked right next to their orange abomination. Ah. They must have thought that it was an actual marine ship. If there are any marines on that ship when Nojiko and Naruto and Ikki get back they'll chase us. One marine jumped out and looked around Naruto's ship. Hey. This one must have been commandeered by someone. It's marked out all of the marine stuff on it, not to mention it's totally orange. Have you seen this piece of crap? How could I not have? I saw it from 2 miles out. Called out a voice from the real marine ship. Johnny let out a girlish shriek. Ah. They're going to take Anaki's ship back. Yosaku's eyes hardened at that thought. No. We have to protect Aniki. We can't have him fighting alone all of the time. We have to fight too. Johnny grabbed him by his collar. Are you insane? These are Marines. The real pirate hunters. They chase real pirates, not just the weak ones that we were going after. Yosaku shook his head and drew his sword. I don't care. Naruto and Ikki would have done it, so I will too. I will be strong like him. With that Yosaku rushed the gangplank and ran onto the orange ship, surprising everyone that was on board. One marine looked at Yosaku oddly. Who the are you and what are you doing here? Yosaku growled. I'm here to take back my Anaki's ship. Leave now or I'll make you. The Marines started laughing. Who does this guy think he is? He doesn't even look like he knows how to hold the thing. How is he going to take this thing back? Like this. Yosaku rushed the first Marine who blocked with his rifle and pushed him off. This is Naruto Anaki's ship. The Marines pulled out their rifles and fired at Yosaku, who took cover behind the mast. Oh man, how am I going to do this? They all have guns. All I have is this sword, and I'm weighed down. His eyes widened in realization. Wait a minute, I'm weighed down. Flashback 2 days after setting course to Logatown, Johnny and Yosaku were slogging around the ship as fast as their legs could carry them, with their tongues hanging out, panting pitifully. Naruto was overseeing them, walking up and down the mast, sticking to it with chakra. Feel that burn, guys, that feeling of your muscles screaming at you to stop moving. Don't listen to it or I will jump down there and break my foot off in your ass. Naruto looked down to see Nojiko pouting up at him. You're going to kill those two, Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned. Nah, they're fine. Right, guys? Johnny and Yosaku both groaned loudly. Naruto got a tick mark on his head. What was that? Was that, please jump down here and beat some spirit back into us, Naruto Aniki. Well, okay, if you insist. Johnny and Yosaku suddenly sped up. No need for that, Naruto Aniki. Seriously, they heal really fast. The fact that they can get up and do this again after what I made them do yesterday is nothing short of amazing. They should just be one big bruise right now. Naruto smirked and jumped down onto the deck. Can you access chakra yet, Nojiko-chan? She shook her head in the negative. I can't feel anything, Naruto-kun. Are you sure that I even have it? Naruto nodded. Everyone has it. Just keep trying whenever you have the time. Even these guys can do it. He looked at Johnny and Yosaku. Come here, you guys. You're done for the day. The two yelled in victory and dropped to the ground and crawled over to Naruto and Nojiko, who let out a small laugh as they collapsed at their feet. Naruto crouched down and lifted their heads up. Alright, this is important. I want you to wear these things everywhere you go, for everything you do. Johnny tried picking himself off of the ground, but Naruto Aniki, this is hard. I've never seen anyone train like this. Naruto gave him a deadpan look. Have you ever seen anyone that was actually strong trained? How do you think Zoro got good? He just picked up 3 swords and started going nuts. No, he did retarded stuff like this that looks insane at first glance. Compared to the stuff I'm going to make you do soon, this is tame. Naruto thunked them both lightly on the head. Make everything an exercise. I only want you to take them off in one instance. The two had their eyes firmly locked on Naruto. The first time you two fight, I want you to take them off. Just to prove to you that I'm not blowing smoke when I make you do this stuff. You don't even tamper with these things until then. End flashback. Yosaku unsnapped the bands from his legs and arms and felt an absurd amount of pressure drop from his body. Did we kill the guy? No, he's still hiding behind the mast. Hey, aim for the mast. Johnny saw the Marines on the other ship pointing their cannon at Yosaku, who was crouched behind the mast. Crap. He reached for his weights and unsnapped them, letting them drop onto the dock with a crack. Hold on, Yosaku, you idiot. Johnny pulled out his sword and jumped onto the Marine boat, overwhelming them at how fast he got in front of the cannon. He kicked it, turning it to the side in time for it to fire at the helm, destroying the method of steering the ship and disabling it. Johnny surprised himself at how hard he kicked the cannon, so much so that he didn't notice the Marines looking at him oddly. Who the are you? Another one of these weird guys, I'm that idiot's partner. Johnny pointed over at Naruto's ship with Yosaku taking off his weights, and as stupid as this is, I can't let you blow him up. So I have to have his back on this. Johnny saw them pull out rifles and take aim at him. Johnny evasively rolled out of the way and took off behind the mast. He waited for them to stop firing as he readied himself for a counterattack. Reload. Johnny rushed from behind the mast, kicking a barrel sitting on the deck at them to avert their attention, and knocked the rifles from their hands with a slash before whipping back around and taking them all out with a second-wide slash. Johnny stayed in a crouch, just taking in the moment. Did that really just happen? One of the Marines, groaning in pain on the ground, looked up at Johnny weakly. What crew out there has the ability to steal a Marine ship, and who paints it orange? Johnny was stunned by the question. That's a good question. Naruto Aniki never named us. Yosaku shut his eyes tightly and sprang from behind the mast, ready to attack as the Marines were reloading. They abandoned trying to reload and attempted to use the bayonets on their rifles to stab and slash at him. Yosaku parried a thrust from one of the Marines and elbowed him in the face before he slashed at another, getting him right in the chest, eliminating him from the fight. The last Marine found time to reload and got off a swow at Yosaku, who saw it coming and shifted his body out of the way of the S, shocking himself at how fast he was moving. Before the man had time to register the fact that he missed, Johnny had run past him, finishing him with a biting cut. Yosaku turned and saw that he had defeated all of the Marines aboard the ship. A grin started covering his face and he leapt in the air, whooping in victory, "I won. I actually won. I can't believe this. I'll never badmouth Naruto Anaki's training again, this is awesome. Hey Yosaku." Yosaku ran over to the side of the ship to see Johnny doing the same from the Marine ship. "Hey Johnny." Johnny had an identical grin on his face. "Did you win too?" Yosaku started laughing madly. "It's never been that easy before. That was just after a week of training." Johnny thumbed his finger over his shoulder. "Naruto Aniki said we didn't have any ammo or weapons, so I think we should raid their supply. I mean, they did try to take our ship." Yosaku slapped the side of the ship before jumping over and heading over to Johnny. "Yeah. Now that's showing initiative." With Naruto and Nojiko appeared in the middle of a crowd of people, dispersing them out of shock from seeing two people appear in a swirl of random leaves. Naruto saw Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro running away from the square towards the docks. Naruto had to blink. "Did we just run into Luffy and your sister's crew again? What the? How did we catch up to them?" Nojiko looked at the men of the Strafut crew run away. "I don't know. Is your stolen Marine ship that much faster than theirs? It has to be because you left 2 days after they did." Nojiko gasped as she saw the amount of Marines chasing them. "If they get back to the rest of the crew where Nami is." Naruto groaned. "Oh well, I guess things have been quiet enough. Come on, let's make sure your sister and her friends don't get arrested." Naruto picked up Nojiko piggyback style, ignoring her sound of surprise, and took off running along the rooftops of the city, keeping pace with Luffy's crew and the Marines. Nojiko cried out when it started downpouring randomly in the midst of the chase. Nojiko looked behind them and tapped Naruto on the shoulder. "Naruto-kun, what is that?" Naruto saw a m of smoke moving towards Luffy, who had left Zoro behind to fight some girl with swords. The M turned into a muscular white-haired man smoking 2 cigars at once. He wore a thick white and blue marine jacket with fur lining the neck, wrists, and hem, in addition to brown leather gloves, blue jeans with a brown belt, and brown leather boots. He also had a jute on his back. "My name is Smoker. I am the captain of the Marine main base. I won't allow you to get out of here, Monkey D. Luffy." Smoker's arms turned to his namesake as he sent them out at Luffy, snatching him up into the air. Sanji tried kicking at the smoke to free his captain. "What is this?" However, his leg was caught just as easily when he kicked at Smoker's face. "Don't mess with me, you weakling. Hawaito Auto, white out." He covered Sanji in smoke and picked him up like Luffy. Luffy stretched his arm out and grabbed a hold of Sanji to try and pull him out. Smoker caught him and mashed Luffy's face into the ground. He attempted to pull the jute from his back. Naruto, upon seeing this, was about to spring into action until a hand rested on Smoker's arm. "I don't think so." Naruto's eyes widened at the sight. Fast, suddenly a MIV storm came up, forcing Naruto to hold tight to Nojiko lest she get blown away like Smoker was. The storm was the opportunity for Luffy to reach his feet and escape with the rest of his crew. Naruto jumped to the ground as the mysterious man vanished. "Who the was that guy? He's the strongest guy I've ever seen since I've shown up here. Where can I find more guys like that to fight?" Nojiko hit him on the shoulder. "You want to fight that guy? What's wrong with you? Guys as dangerous as Arlong aren't enough for you anymore." Naruto picked his ear. "Nope, not really. Arlong was a jabroni, that guy's a champion." Naruto's eyes cut to the side. Speaking of jabronis, Naruto threw a kunai on the ground as a motorcycle stopped in front of it. Naruto stared at Smoker, who had come back from being blown away. Naruto formed a cage bunshin. "Nojiko-chan, go with my clone back to the ship. Tell the others to get everything ready for us to leave. I might need to make a quick escape." Nojiko nodded nervously and grabbed the cage bunshin's hand. "Be careful, Naruto-kun. Aren't I always?" He gave her a wide grin. "Now get on out of here." Nojiko gave him a hesitant smile and took off with the cage bunshin to the ship. Naruto's grin dropped as he turned back towards Smoker. So I assume you're here to keep chasing Luffy. I can't let you do that. You see, that strong guy showed his face to get him free, and I have to believe that someone that powerful doesn't just do random things for no good reason. That's not his style, so in order to meet this person that I can fight him, I'm going to have to stop you from pursuing Luffy. Smoker climbed off his bike, cigar smoke billowing from his mouth. The seat of war, Naruto Uzumaki, one of the youngest marine-killing pirates in the entire world. Are you saying that you intend to pursue Monkey D. Dragon, the most dangerous man in the world? Dragon is the man's name. Good to know. Naruto snickered. Young. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. And Nezumi was a stain, that guy. I'm not a pirate just because I killed some crooked marine captain, but it doesn't matter at this point. Naruto dropped into a stance. If you want some, come get some. Smoker swung his arms out in smoke again in an effort to surround Naruto. The blonde was faster than the attack, however, as he evaded the swung and ended up in Smoker's face, hitting him with a series of rapid-fire punches. Naruto was noticeably irked as his fists went through, much like Sanji's had. Naruto avoided Smoker's counter of using his body to engulf Naruto's frame by effing up one of the walls nearby. What the is that? Why can't I hit you? I know I hit harder than Sanji or Luffy can. Smoker's face appeared in the miv cloud of smoke that he became. This is a Logia type Akuma no Mi. Anyone that uses these kinds cannot be harmed by most attacks other than their weaknesses. Now get ready to face the gallows that Straw had avoided earlier. Hawaito Supaku, White Spark. His miv smoke body charged at Naruto. Naruto rolled backwards in retreat. What the, now I can't run or he'll follow me to the ship and then everyone else is screwed. He yelled at Smoker. Off. You're really starting to piss me off now. The smoke overtook Naruto, who was trying to think of some way to get Smoker off of him so that he could leave, since any attack he could muster would just pass through him like smoke. That was it. Like smoke. He was smoke. Naruto quickly burst out of the smoke before Smoker could solidify it around him and retreated towards the ship a bit further. Smoker laughed as he chased Naruto towards the ocean. Just give up, Uzumaki. It'll be easier for both of us. Naruto looked behind him again. Yeah, actually it would be. Since I would just break out of wherever you would put me and be on my merry way. But I have people to take care of and you're in the way, so now it's time to remove you. Naruto pressed his hands into the horse seal and took a deep breath. Fuden, Tatsumaki Sanden, Wind Release, Twister Swow. Naruto spat out a miv tornado that ripped up the streets and messed up houses and other nearby buildings. The tornado pulled Smoker's body into the forceful whirlwind. Naruto held fast to the ground with chakra as he watched his opponent get tossed about into the air. Naruto snickered as the attack cleared up. Later, Smoker. Feel free to find me again when you put yourself back together. Naruto ran off towards the ship. Nojiko had her hand over her face, shaking her head slowly. Naruto-kun is going to kill you too. You're both so stupid. I really underestimated how dumb you two were. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Never again. Johnny sat on the brand new cannons they had moved from the other ship onto theirs. Johnny was gleefully buffing the one he was sitting on. Why would he be mad? He already has a bounty. How the would he find himself any worse off now? And we have cannons and tons of ammo right now. Whoever's ship that was, they were loaded. Yosaku was busy hauling crates of bullets under the deck for storage. Yeah, and we actually beat our opponents. With all that Naruto Aniki has done for us, getting him some firepower was the least we can do. After all, we are just his humble pupils. Naruto appeared on the deck in a burst of leaves with a mirthful look on his face. Alright, today has been eventful. Let's get out of here before Smoker pulls himself back together and starts hunting me down. There are some seriously weird powers out there, I swear. Naruto looked at the 4 new cannons he had lining his deck, 2 on each side. Where did these come from? Nojiko pointed at a marine ship docked right next to theirs. Your humble students ripped them off as a thank you for your diligence in teaching them, she said in a stupid voice. Naruto stood still for a moment, just staring at Nojiko, then at a grinning Johnny, then back and forth a few more times. He finally threw his hands up and walked towards the helm. I'm not even going to say anything, Johnny. Yosaku. Naruto called out as he started getting the boat out of the docks. Both men ran right up to Naruto's back, standing like new recruits. Yes, Naruto Aniki. Naruto's eye twitched as they still hadn't realized what they had done, however he still kept his back turned. Did you take off your weights to fight those Marines on that ship? Both men grinned. Yeah, we did, but we put them right back on after we won. It's your winning training method after all. I see. Naruto nodded to himself and made a half-tiger seal. Weight increase. Both men dropped to the ground once again. Groaning as they found themselves unable to move from the deck, Yosaku had to ask, Naruto and Ikki, why? Naruto turned around slowly with a displeased look on his face. You two stole those cannons. I can understand kicking their ass because they were trying to take my ship, but you stole everything from them. What is the definition of a pirate? Johnny shakily tried to pull himself up. We don't know. Naruto made a hand sign and dropped them both to the ground again. Piracy is defined as any criminal act of violence, detention, or depredation committed for private ends by the crew or the pengers of a private ship that is directed against another ship, or against persons or property on board a ship. Do you know what that means? Both shook their heads from the ground and found Naruto's fists angrily bouncing off of their skulls. It means that you literally made me a pirate, for real. Both had huge bumps on their heads. Johnny looked up at the angry immortal. How much weight is this in Ikki? Naruto turned back to the helm and kept steering the ship. Since you both got used to 100 pounds so quickly and because you pissed me off, you can now have fun learning how to walk with 200 pounds each. Enjoy. Something rolled from Johnny and Yosaku and hit the back of his foot. Naruto reached down and picked it up. It looked like a comp watch of some sort. What the is this? Johnny finally pulled himself to his feet. It looks like some kind of funky kompaniki. We took it because it looked cool. Nojiko walked up to Naruto and took it from his hands before strapping it on her wrist. You don't know what this is. All of the men shook their heads, forcing the girl to sigh. You're all so stupid, I swear, it's a log pose. You need one just to navigate the Grand Line because regular comps don't work. After getting blank looks from everyone on board, she simply walked away below deck. Never mind. Just go where I tell you to go when we get to the Grand Line. She disappeared, mumbling about stupid blade-swinging morons and cute blonde ignoramuses. Smoker finally got himself together and rushed toward the docks where Naruto had been heading, intent on pursuing either them or the Strafuts, whoever he caught up with first. One was too dangerous because Dragon found it in his best interest to intervene to protect him. What could that mean? The other was too dangerous because, well, he just pissed Smoker off. He was also dangerous for real. Who spits out tornadoes in the middle of a city? Captain Smoker. Smoker found his Master Chief Petty Officer running near him. What are we going to do now? She had dark blue hair that went down to her neck, glees, dark blue slacks, and a yellow shirt with pink flowers on it. Smoker reformed as they arrived at the docks, were leaving to pursue them Tashigi. Both of them are going to the Grand Line, Monkey D. Luffy and Naruto Uzumaki. A marine ran off of the ship, but sir, you were supposed to remain stationed here. Smoker moved past him to board the ship. I will show them not to order me around. Come on, we're leaving. The same man pushed his fingers together. About that, sir. There's something you should know. Smoker stood on his ship with his mouth wide open in surprise. It was a wonder the cigars he had in there didn't fall out. What the happened to my ship? In addition to the unconscious Marines strewn about, the helm was completely destroyed by cannon fire. And speaking of cannons, there weren't any. The Marine that had tried to tell him came aboard, so these two men came and attacked us when we were trying to take back a Marine ship that had been stolen and refurbished. The two men beat all of us and wrecked our ship before stealing everything of value on board and dumping everyone on this ship. It just now left. Smoker almost bit through his cigars. This is just not my day. Who? I want to know who did it. They were two odd-looking guys with swords, but they kept screaming stuff about Naruto and Ikki. Apparently they called themselves the Foxhound Pirates. Naruto asked, looking at the rest of his crew strangely with squinted eyes, what is it with stupid names revolving around me? For the second time today I reiterate, was that the best you had? But it makes sense in Ikki. Yosaku tried to reason, me and Johnny were bounty hunters that pursued our prey like hounds, and that's how loyal we are to you. Joni Y pointed another point out, not to mention that you are the captain, and with those whisker marks on your face and the facial expressions you give off regularly you kind of reminded me of a fox. Naruto turned to look at him, still squinting, you see. Just like that, how can you not see that? Nojiko grabbed a hold of Naruto's face, studying it for a moment before breaking into a smile. Oh yeah. I totally see it now. Naruto grumbled under his breath childishly and walked up the mast to take a nap in the crow's nest. Stupid stigmas, stupid foxes existing everywhere in the entire world. Even after several lifetimes I can't escape. 1 week later, what the is that? Naruto asked, looking out the window of the common area as they came to a memorandum that stretched as far as the eye could see. Nojiko held up a map. That's the red line, Naruto-kun. If you want to pee between the seas or head towards the Grand Line, you have to get around it. Naruto stroked his chin. How do you get across? I mean, I could climb it, but that would leave the boat here as well as the rest of you. Nojiko gave him a dry look. You can climb it, Naruto-kun. Seriously. It's 10,000 meters up and over. How would you manage that? Naruto returned her look with one of his own and proceeded to walk up the mast of the ship and back down, stopping in front of her. Now picture that, just on that continent, and for way longer. Actually, I would just run it, so it might not be that long. Nojiko gasped. Naruto-kun, do you know what that means? If you're serious, you can reach Marijoy, the holy government land. Naruto nodded. Good to know in case I ever want to burn it to the ground. Ignoring Nojiko's stunned look at his words, he took the map from her. Now how do we get this boat onto the Grand Line? Nojiko shook off her bewildered look. We have to traverse Reverse Mountain. A place where all of the 4 oceans' waters meet and spill into the Grand Line. Naruto scratched his head. Man, the world has some messed up geography. How does everyone travel like this? There can only be so many people that are capable of anything even remotely similar to what we're about to do. There has to be another way. Nojiko frowned. There is, but now that you have a bounty of 55 million, it's even more obscenely dangerous than it was in the first place. You have to get through one of the 3 gates of justice of the Marines. Each one leads directly to heavily fortified areas of power for the Marines. Naruto shrugged. We have a marine ship that apparently still looks enough like one to risk getting repossessed. I'm sure that there are some marine uniforms on this tub, why not? It seems a lot easier than climbing a mountain. And stay with me now because I know this will sound illogical. How about going south, which also seems like a much better way than climbing a mountain with a ship. Nojiko punched Naruto in the head. Are you really this worldly stupid, or are you just a reckless bastard? If we get caught, maybe you could fight your way out, and I severely doubt that even you can, but the rest of us would be dead. Even if it did work, not only would it only work once, your bounty would have to triple because you made a fool of the Marines, getting past them like that. All ways are risky for different reasons. Reverse Mountain is the way everyone uses. Naruto Aniki. Johnny ran inside. The ship has stopped. It's like the wind died or something. Nojiko SC bad her nails on the table they were sitting by and ran outside. No. Naruto and Johnny followed her outside to find her reasonably freaking out about something. Noji-chan, calm down and tell me, what's the matter? It can't be that bad. Nojiko turned to him. Calm. Calm is what the problem is in the first place. We're in the calm belt, the stretch of ocean surrounding the Grand Line. Naruto smiled. See, I knew there was an easier way to get there than climbing a mountain. Nojiko didn't calm herself. No, this is different, it's not good at all. This place is the reason I didn't want to go south in the first place. The calm belt is swarming with sea kings. Naruto raised an eyebrow while Johnny paled. Okay, what the is a sea king and why do I care? Johnny started moving towards the mast, trying to stay away from the edges of the ship. Sea kings are gigantic monsters way bigger than anything you'll see anywhere. They attack anything that comes near them mercilessly. Naruto shrugged. So, I'll just kill it. It can't be any tougher than a rampaging demon of myth, right? Nojiko just stared at him. I'm not even going to ask, but seriously, we need to get out of here. Or, Naruto started, we just need to hustle to the Grand Line. Once we get there everything should be cool, right? Johnny cupped his chin in his hand. Well, theoretically it should be. Right. I mean they do go other places, but for the most part they only stick around in the calm belt. Nojiko had anime tears coming from her eyes at this point. You're going to get us all killed. There's no wind here, there's no current, don't you remember? How do you think we're going to get anywhere without even any wind? We need to get this thing turned around and keep from heading south, We need to go north to Reverse Mountain, that's the way all pirates get to the Grand Line. Naruto picked at his ear, Marines don't do it. Nojiko blinked, huh. That's right, I've never heard of any Marine doing that to get to and from the Grand Line, or anywhere in general. Even though they have the gates of justice that can't account for everything, can it? I mean, Impel Down is in the middle of the calm belt, how did they get anyone on or off that place? Yosaku came on deck yawning, hey guys, what's up? Naruto turned towards Yosaku and gestured for him to come over, we're trying to figure out how the Marines can go everywhere in the entire world with all of the strange crap that act as natural barriers. Yosaku's eyebrows raised, why are you worried about that? Are we being chased or something? Nojiko shook her head, no, it's because we're in the calm belt. Oh no, we're still in the calm belt. She pointed at Naruto accusingly, stop distracting me by being so cute and inquisitive. We need to get out of here. Naruto raised his hands in defense. Yosaku just walked over to the training area and brandished his sword before beginning to go through his motions, oh that's it. We're fine. Nojiko snapped at Yosaku, how the air we fine? I may not be nearly as good at navigating as Nami is, but I know that the calm belt is a death trap for most ships. Yosaku just kept practicing, yeah, most ships. This is a marine ship, remember? Yosaku made a face while he was moving about, hey Naruto Aniki, can you increase my weights for me? Naruto nodded and did so, watching Yosaku buckle slightly before he continued to work out as Nojiko didn't understand what he was talking about. What do you mean? This is a marine ship. Duh. Who cares? Yosaku was starting to get irritated, because marine ships have seastone lining the bottoms so that sea kings can't sense them in the ocean water. That's why marine ships can go anywhere. Why do you think they can get to Impel Down in one piece? That place is teeming with sea kings. Everyone else just stood silently while Yosaku eventually got tired of everyone staring at him. What? Johnny pointed at him, how do you know that? You don't know anything. Yosaku rolled his eyes, because when we stopped off to drop our bounties I didn't just stand there looking stupid while waiting in line, I actually listened to some of the stuff that the Marine guards would say. You'd be surprised how much that comes up, it's like every Marine worships Seastone or something. Naruto rubbed his hands together in excitement, alright. Now that that little issue is resolved we still need to get out of here. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto formed 5 clones that jumped off of the back of the ship and ran out a decent distance on the water. Give us a boost, boys. The clones saluted him and made hand seals. Fuden, Datapa, wind release. Great breakthrough. They caused a great gust of wind to fill the ship's sails and blow it along from its stationary position. Yada. Grand Line, here we come. Naruto yelled into the distance at his waving clones, good going guys. The party of the Kage Bunshin was cut short when a pair of jaws emerged from the water, snatching them all up and devouring them. The entire crew, sans Naruto, watched with wide eyes as the creature dove back underneath the water. Naruto scratched his head, so that's a sea king, huh? I can see why you were so concerned now. He said blankly, oh well, whatever. Let's go. He walked back to the helm, taking a shocked Nojiko with him. I really need to learn how to navigate. We're all going to die, why was coming out here supposed to be a good idea? She muttered to herself as Naruto led her away. Johnny's sungles were falling slightly off of his face. Yosaku. Yosaku's eyes were still bulging. Yes, Johnny. We're going to die out here, aren't we? Naruto's voice was heard. Johnny. Since Yosaku took the initiative and asked for an increase in weights, you're getting it too. A glow of bands ended with Johnny crashing to the ground. Yosaku nodded in answer to Johnny's question. Yes, we are. The only question is, whether the Grand Line will do it, or will Naruto Aniki do it himself. Chapter 6. Famous for all the wrong reasons. Naruto looked over Nojiko's shoulder as she sat in the common area going over a map. He pointed at the log pose. That thing isn't pointing north, Noji-chan. Nojiko rolled her eyes while keeping them on the map in front of her. I know, Naruto-kun. Normal comps don't work on the Grand Line. Something about this place has messed up magnetic fields, so your regular everyday comp is useless here. That's why the log pose is important. Naruto nodded in understanding. Okay, so if this is what we need to navigate, then why is it going all haywire like that? Because right now it's acting just like my regular comp. Is it broken? Nojiko frowned. How were you planning on captaining this ship if you don't know this stuff, Naruto-kun? Naruto shrugged and she pulled him down to sit next to her. Listen up. The log pose needs to lock onto a specific island's magnetic signature. From that point it won't reset until we reach that island and stay there for a while. It resets 7 times and then always points at the final destination on the Grand Line, Raftel. Naruto smirked. Well, it's a good thing that we can get on and off the Grand Line whenever that we want, isn't it? Man, taking this ship was an awesome investment. Nojiko smiled and nodded. Yep, even though you did it by accident, you've really gotten us a boon here, Naruto-kun. We can do all kinds of things with this ship that other pirates can't do. Naruto's smirk fell. So you're calling us pirates now too? We haven't even done anything per AT. Yeah, Johnny and Yosaku did, but they're idiots. I don't even think they know that I've been increasing their weights slightly every other night. Nojiko looked at him in shock. You've been what? Naruto grinned. Yep. Every other night I increase their weights by 2 pounds, even if I end up giving them a MIB increase the next day. I can't believe they can't tell, but I guess being as tired and sore as they probably are all of the time, they can't feel much difference when they wake up in the morning. He looked at the map. So where are we anyway? Nojiko returned focus to the map and placed her finger on the blue line leading east to west through the middle of the map. We're somewhere in here, fairly close to Reverse Mountain in the Paradise part of the Grand Line. Naruto gave her a questioning look. Paradise? You call a place with giant sea creatures capable of smashing our ship by accident paradise? Nojiko thunked him lightly on the head. Listen please. Paradise is what they call the part of the Grand Line that spans from the start point of Reverse Mountain to the Red Line on the adjacent side of the world. Once you pee that point, it's the New World, the part that's barely mapped out at all. It's super dangerous. Naruto raised an eyebrow. How the are we going to cross the Red Line once we get that far? I guess I could drag the ship up the side and over. We could cross it that way. Nojiko panicked. No. We need permission from Marijoy to do something like that. Naruto scoffed. Again with that Marijoy place. Them. They can't tell me where to go or what to do. I'm not a citizen of the stupid world government. I've told you once and I'll tell you again, Noji-chan. I do what I want because I've yet to come face to face with anyone that can stop me. When I actually do meet someone that might be able to kill me, I'll probably start watching my back, but until that point in time I will be reckless and immature. Nojiko eyed him. Why? Naruto smirked. Because I'm bored. I thought we've been through this. A sigh came from the girls. You know, sometimes you seem really smart, like the 2 times back on Kami Island and in Logatown, and even the first time you started training Johnny and Yosaku, and then most of the time you're like this. Naruto wrapped an arm around Nojiko's shoulder. Do you know why? Nojiko shook her head, fighting to keep a blush down, because being smart is boring. Being able to plan things out and seeing everything coming as it happens is boring as all. I used to hear people say that it's a virtue, not when you hate doing nothing. Do I realize that this was a bad idea to go to the Grand Line with no real crew and not a single idea as to what I'm doing here? Of course I do, but once again, I don't care. Nojiko pulled his arm from around her. I don't think I have to tell you that's a terrible way of thinking, Naruto-kun. Naruto stood up and shrugged. Maybe so, but the thing is, I've lived a specific lifestyle since I was a kid, and that lifestyle revolved around combat and misadventures. My developmental years were spent training to fight, fighting, or going places, where I inevitably ended up getting into fights. Do you see my point now? Yes, I guess. Nojiko said. So your nickname on the wanted poster isn't inappropriate at all. That's kind of sad come to think of it, so you grew up pretty much fighting. Naruto scratched his head. Well, I didn't really start fighting until I was 12, but I had been training to do it for about half a dozen years before that. He looked at the table she was seated at and made to change the subject before he said too much. So for someone that isn't very good at this navigating thing, you're sure getting us where we need to go. Nojiko looked down at the table. It was full of maps that she had joined together at their edges to make a bigger scene of things to work with. She smiled up at him. Well, I never said I was bad. If I was, I never would have tried. I'm just not nearly as good as Nami. That girl can navigate using just one of these, sometimes none at all. All she really needed when she was stealing for Arlong was a comp and a general direction. Sometimes she would come back with fully filled out maps that she made herself. Nojiko laughed to herself at the thought. She gestured to table filled edge to edge with all kinds of maps and estimations of potential stop points. She even accounted for them needing to get off of the Grand Line at certain points. Me however, I need all of this here to get us anywhere. Naruto grinned. I'm going to get you some big, ornate piece of crap to place all of this on proper. You know, something that shows how absurdly important this all is. Nojiko smiled at him and pulled on his cheek. Just let me figure out where we're going first for now. I'll tell you when the log post gives me our first destination, okay? Naruto gave her a playful salute. Sure thing Noji-chan. I'll come back later so you don't get lonely. With that he left the common area and headed outside where Johnny and Yosaku were sparring. The two were jumping all about the ship, clashing Bakken against one another. Naruto had to admit, they had gotten far more agile than when he first placed the weights on them. Instead of fighting and retreating all the way up the steps as they would be prone to doing when they first started training on his watch, they were now jumping between levels instead of running up the stairs. Naruto would have called them show-offs when he saw them both standing on the banister between the upper and lower level, but admittedly he probably would have done the same thing in their case. On this day he had decreased their weights enough so that they could fight each other well enough to start working on skill instead of just fighting to move about. They were fast enough for the time being. It was best to let them get used to their top speed and how they would move without being weighed down. He watched them gain their balance before attempting to charge one another, while standing on the railing. Not a particularly good idea since they both sped and, smashed their G-bads on the wood. Naruto had to hold on to something to keep from collapsing in laughter as he watched them both drop to the lower level on their heads holding their junk. Johnny groaned in pain and kicked at Yosaku, who was mirroring his actions. Why did you convince me that doing that was a good idea? Yosaku kicked him back and pulled himself away while still holding on to himself. Naruto Aniki does stuff that makes that look as easy as walking down the street. If he can do it, then we can too. Excuse me for trying to make us better than we already are. Johnny pulled himself to his feet with the use of a wall. Naruto Aniki also uses that chakra stuff. He can stick to stuff, meanwhile we are on a moving ship. That was a terrible idea. How the did I let you talk me into trying that? Naruto pulled himself up and wiped a tear from his eye. That was absolutely click. Hey, you guys shouldn't try to learn how to fight like me. Nobody fights like me. You should find your own way to do it, not just trying to copy someone. They both looked at each other and then at Naruto. How? They both asked at the same time. Naruto walked away, heading back inside the ship. Figure it out. You two are both two halves of the same brain. Johnny and Yosaku simply looked at each other with confused expressions as Naruto's footsteps sounded out across the wooden surface. Nojiko sighed with her cheeks in her hands and glared at the log pose that was still going haywire on her wrist, point somewhere already. Her boredom was broken when she saw Naruto carrying a crate of stuff up from the hold. She saw him go back and forth 3 times, carrying more crates and then an arm full of bundled items. Naruto-kun, what are you doing? Naruto looked over at her and blinked. Are you busy? Nojiko shook her head. There's not much I can do until I know where the log pose wants us to go first. Naruto smiled. Excellent. He formed a seal-less cage bunchen and handed the stuff off to it before grabbing Nojiko by her hand and pulling her outside. Come on, let's get started while we have the chance. Nojiko was confused. Started with what? What are you doing, Naruto-kun? He smirked back at her. Well, I've been racking my brain trying to come up with something for you to do, and I have to say, I'm a complete idiot. Nojiko gave him a dry look. I could have told you that myself from personal experience. Naruto fake laughed. Whatever. The problem was, I was trying to think of something out of left field for you to use. Some kind of absurd weapon that I had no idea how I was even going to get you in the first place, and then it hit me. There was no need to get so intricate and complicated with it, especially since the main goal of me getting you a weapon was simply defending yourself. And we have tons of the simplest, deadliest things here for you to use. He reached into the wrapped bundles and pulled out a flintlock pistol, placing it into her delicate hands. She looked at it with wide eyes and then up to him. A gun. You're going to give me a gun? Naruto shook his head. Not a gun, Noji-chan. He pulled the cover off of the things he had brought up. Guns. He walked over and pried open a crate. Johnny and Yosaku did do something right by dragging all of this crap onto our ship. Do you think you stole enough ammunition though? Seriously, I could make 100 cage bunshin, arm them to the teeth, and have them get into a 2-day wasteful shootout with each other and still have enough here to teach Noji-chan how to shoot. The two swordsmen just grinned. Now I'll never pick one of these things up. I like punching people in the face too much to use guns, but you can learn how to use these. I know enough from my time on a merchant ship that got me to the East Blue in the first place to teach you how to use them better. Nojiko held the pistol in her hands. Why a gun? Naruto shrugged. You don't seem to be the type to pick up knife fighting, so teaching you how to do that seemed out. Besides, the very first thing you did when we met was shove a pistol in my face, so you're not unfamiliar with them. Nojiko kneeled down to look at what Naruto had on hand as far as firearms went. Well, in that case, the first thing you did when we first met was stare at my chest. So what does that say about you? Naruto chuckled. Well, what I think it says about you is that you have a nice rack, and that your tattoo attracts attention to them. Speaking of which, you bending down to check those guns like that is giving me prime view of your cleavage. As if you didn't want me to look, tease. Pervert. Nojiko got a tick mark on her head and pointed the pistol at Naruto and pulled the trigger, getting an empty C sound for her trouble. Naruto smirked and revealed what was in the crate he opened. Cases of ammunition and powder. Did you really think I would give you a loaded gun and then say something so stupid? I'm wiser than that, Noji-chan. He finished with his eyes closed, right before getting cracked over the head with the butt of the pistol. Ow! Exclamation mark quote. Johnny and Yosaku snickered from their place near the wheel. Naruto and Ikki just got clocked. Nojiko held the gun by its muzzle, glaring at Naruto, who was holding his head with tears in his eyes. We didn't have many bullets for me to use because of Arlong's whole no stockpiling weapons thing. I never fired it before. Naruto rubbed the bump on his head and pointed at all of the things out on the tarp he brought up to the deck. All of this stuff has uses. We have extras of most of them thanks to our friends with sticky fingers. He said while pointing up at a waving Johnny and Yosaku, flintlock pistol. He started to say as he positioned himself behind Nojiko, taking her hands into the proper firing position. This is how you aim as a beginner. When you're good, you'll only need one hand to hit stuff while in full movement, but for now you aim like this until it becomes clockwork for you to shoot the bullseye of a moving target. Nojiko nodded, blushing the entire time as Naruto guided her movements from behind her. Thinking she had a swow, she pulled the trigger just to get another C. She looked back at Naruto questioningly. Naruto let go of her and moved over to one of the crates to grab a box of bullets and powder. We didn't load it yet, Noji-chan. I just wanted you to get used to the feeling of holding it and aiming it. He took the gun from her and dropped some powder into the gun before placing 3 bullets inside. These aren't the super cheap ones like the one you tried to use on me. It can hold 3 swows each, then you need to reload. You also need to work on your reload time. I'll come up with a way for you to practice that without wasting stuff. You should always have at least 2 on you, since reloading in the middle of a fight is a terrible idea, especially since you don't know how to do it right yet. He handed the gun back to her. Now hit the target over there. I usually use it to practice with kunai and shuriken, but I'm as good as I'm going to get with those. Consider these bullseyes yours to practice on. Nojiko nodded and took up the stance that Naruto first placed her in. Her first swow recoiled, making her stumble, and she missed the target altogether. Naruto steadied her. That's okay. Every gun has some kind of kick to it. And you'll be learning how to use all of these. He kneeled down and pointed to each one. Rifle, for long range. It's extremely accurate, but you have to reload after every swow, so only use it when you are far enough to hit something without being left a sitting duck when or if you miss. He pointed at another, swaugen, for super close range. This requires a whole different kind of swow that I didn't bring up here. Use it when you're surrounded or about to fight multiple opponents at once. It has 2 swows and then you reload. He looked up at her and tapped the pistol in her hand. That should be your go-to weapon at all times and the thing that you end up being best with, since it's basically multi-purpose, and if you end up fighting, chances are the fight will start with whoever your opponent is too close for proper rifle work and too far for your swaugen to be effective. Nojiko nodded and then pointed at some round things with fuses on the ends. What are these then, Naruto-kun? Naruto shrugged and picked one up. I have no clue. No one ever went over these with me. I guess they're like some kind of marine-only weapons. I wonder what they do. Naruto lit one and watched as the fuse slowly started burning down. Johnny started sweating. Naruto Aniki, only cannons have wicks like that. I think you should get rid of that thing, now. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh, Noji-chan, get down. Nojiko did as instructed while Naruto threw the ball as high and as hard as he could. 1 second after it left his hands, it went up in a fiery explosion. The entire crew watched the scene wide-eyed until a grin slowly spread across Nojiko's face as she picked up another one. I think I like these. She fished in her pockets for a match before Naruto snatched it from her hands. Naruto-kun. Naruto placed it back on the tarp with a sweat drop on his head. Okay, now that we know what that is, let's keep that far away from anyone with ideas to use anymore on my ship. I just commandeered this thing. I'll be Ed if I watch it get blown to bits by a mini cannonball. He looked at the explosive orbs wearily. Cammy, those things are like explosive tags. After taking a moment to get her over pouting about not being able to use the explosives, even after hearing Naruto say that they had a ton of them in storage, Naruto proceeded to teach Nojiko how to hold all of the guns and fire them. Soon thereafter she forgot she was supposed to be bored waiting for the log pose to lock onto something as she immersed herself into practicing with her new weapons. It brought a smile to Naruto's face seeing how interested she was in guns after just using them once. 5 days later, what do you mean we have to stop? Nojiko asked as she held her rifle at the ready while Naruto had a frisbee-like disc in his hand, motioning it as if he were to throw it. They were both at the back of the ship, standing on the back upper level, facing the ocean. Naruto wound up repeatedly with the disc, waiting on Nojiko's cue. Well, I have to get the Bonehead brothers decent swords. The crappy ones they have will break the second they fight anyone with an adequate piece of hardware. Zoro could cut right through them right now if they were to fight today, and if they want to be as good as he is one day they need something better. Pull. Nojiko said as Naruto let fly with the disc. She waited until it flew far enough for her to get a good challenge from shooting at it before pulling the trigger. With a crack of her rifle the plate broke in midair, bringing a smile to her. I see your point, but the log pose still hasn't given us a reading yet. Naruto scoffed, and going to some random island to see if they have a good smithy or something is really going to stunt our already defective log pose. Besides, I need someone to make me more kunai and shuriken, as well as a few more other nasty little toys that you guys seemingly don't seem to sell outside of the elemental nations. He picked up another disc and held it at the ready. You're getting good with that thing, Noji-chan. How's it going with the pistol? You good enough for me to start teaching you how to fight on the move? Nojiko shook her head and put her eye back to the crosshairs. No. How are you going to do that anyway? Pull. Naruto tossed the disc. Oh, well, you're going to try to shoot me while I simultaneously throw sharp, pointy objects at you. Nojiko flinched at the thought and pulled the trigger. Naruto smirked at her when she turned around to stare at him. You missed, Noji-chan. Nojiko tried to stammer an argument at him about how that was just a downright horrible idea all around. Why would you do that? One of us could. No, we'll get very hurt. For 2 reasons. 1, the second you hit me, anywhere, you're ready for just about anyone you might end up having to fight. 2, because you have to learn how to fire under pressure and while you're in pain in addition to learning how to simply dodge. Naruto just placed a hand on her shoulder before walking away. You'll be a sniper in no time with what I'm going to make you do. He turned one more time and winked at her before leaving. You really didn't think that I wasn't going to have some kind of painfully absurd, effective training program for you two, did you? Nojiko just drooped her shoulders pitifully and walked back inside the ship with her rifle in hand. Naruto-kun, Aniki. The sounds of his 3 crew members down below forced Naruto awake from his spot in the crow's nest. He pulled himself to the edge and looked down below. What? He yelled to them. Nojiko pointed off in the direction the ship was going in. Naruto looked and smiled at the sight of an island. Fantastic. We've finally got somewhere to stop for a bit. No. Nojiko yelled up to him, holding binoculars in her hand. Look closer. Naruto turned back towards the island and squinted. Naruto saw a marine ship docked in port. He immediately jumped down from the crow's nest, landing in a crouch in front of everyone else, scaring them from the height of his fall. Nojiko pointed at him admonishingly. Don't do that. Naruto stood up straight as Johnny walked up to him. So what are we going to do, Aniki? Avoid the island altogether. Naruto shook his head. Like I'm going to let one marine ship tell me what to do. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu M Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto made 20 clones, all of you. Man the ship and keep it out of sight. When I need you to pull it around, I'll make and dispel a clone, telling you to do so. You signal me by dispelling one of yourselves. We're going ashore. Nojiko looked at him oddly. How are going Asho? Was the last thing she said before she, along with Johnny and Yosaku, were picked up by the powerful blonde before he jumped over the side of the ship and sprinted atop the water towards the island. Naruto jumped onto the pier and dropped them all before he noticed that the eyes of the roughly 12 people were staring at him in awe. Naruto grinned widely and waved, "Howdy. Would anyone mind telling me where we are?" One old man spoke up to answer him, "You're on Starter Island, lad." Naruto bowed thankfully to the old man, "Thanks a lot, Oji-san." He looked down at his crew who were all disoriented from moving so fast across the water. "Come on you guys, get up. We need to get our stuff." Nojiko stood up first and dusted herself off. "How exactly are we going to pay for anything while we're here? None of us have any real amount of money." Johnny and Yosaku pulled out their empty pockets, nodding in agreement. Naruto pulled out a scroll. "Just because all of you are obscenely broke doesn't mean I am. I was with Nami when she last ripped someone off and she stole a MIB amount. Enough for me to get a nice little slice for myself." Nojiko moved closer to him with her eyes locked on his storage scroll. "How much money exactly are we talking about here, Naruto-kun?" Naruto shrugged. "Let's see, Nami-chan stole 5 million belly and I got a good chunk of all of the stuff she couldn't carry with her. Not to mention the stuff that she made Luffy carry when he left it with the people of Orange Town. I kept a sack of that for myself." He counted on his fingers. "I say I have at least 2 million belly worth of stuff. I know I have about 500,000 in greenbacks." He looked up from his hands to see Nojiko's eyes shining. "What?" Nojiko placed a death grip on his arm. "We're going clothes shopping, now." She finished as if daring him to say no. Naruto blinked at her before turning to Johnny and Yosaku. "Well guys, it looks like we're going clothes shopping." Nojiko dragged Naruto off in a trail of dust. "Don't do anything stupid and I'll find you guys when we're done." Naruto yelled as his voice trailed off. The two swordsmen looked at each other and shrugged before walking off to find something to do. In the shadows of a building overlooking the pier, a sharp canine grin cut through the darkness. Well, what have we here? This is the biggest bounty to float through here in quite a while. The seed of war, huh? Sounds interesting. With Naruto and Nojiko, Naruto sat in a clothing store while Nojiko tried things on. They had been there for the last hour with Nojiko trying on pretty much everything she thought that Naruto could afford, which with 500,000 belly was a lot of stuff. Naruto sat tapping his finger on the arm of a chair as Nojiko stood in her changing room. "You know Noji-chan, if you're going to make me sit here and give you opinions on stuff, you could at least make it fun for me and maybe parade around here in some lingerie. That would be awesome." Nojiko grumbled from behind the door, bringing a smirk to Naruto's face. "Left your guns on the ship, didn't you?" Naruto chuckled to himself. "So do you need me to come in there and help you out? I have something of a magic touch in case you didn't know." Instead of responding, Nojiko came from the changing room wearing tan shorts that came to her thighs and fit tightly. She had on a sleeveless blue V-cut shirt that was ruffled around the collar and very generous with the amount of chest shown it cut off around her stomach. "So what do you think, Naruto-kun?" Naruto nodded fervently. "Along with the majority of the stuff you try on, I like it. However, I still request the parading around in lingerie for Naruto's amusement suggestion from earlier. Something that we can all enjoy." With Johnny and Yosaku, Johnny led Yosaku through the town as they waited for Naruto to return from whatever it was he was doing. Yosaku sighed. "Why does Naruto Aniki always go off with Nojiko whenever we stop somewhere? Do you think it's us?" Johnny simply looked back at him with an incredulous look on his face. It would have been far clearer to tell if he wasn't wearing sungles. "You are so god stupid it's absurd. If you don't get it then I'm not going to bother explaining it to you." Yosaku stared at him in a lost fashion. "Yeah, what are you talking about here?" Johnny shook his head. "Unlike you, Naruto Aniki isn't as close to his right hand as you are, hence why he hangs out with Nojiko. It's pretty simple. Do you understand that? Please tell me you do, because I truly fear to let you procreate if you don't. Future generations don't deserve the fate of having to deal with your backwards offspring." Yosaku stared at him blankly. What? Johnny just sighed and patted Yosaku on the head. Just stand there with your hand on your sword handle and look menacing, okay? Good boy. You guys are obviously the dumb muscle. They both looked at the source of the voice speaking to them to see a man crouched on the rooftop right by them. A man wearing a sleeveless dark gray shirt, black pants and black shoes had a smirk on his face as he looked down at them. He was a rather young bald man with pointed ears. He had a light tan and an odd red tribal marking that spanned his entire left arm and went up his face as well. From there they were able to see that he had ears that were somewhat pointed. Yosaku had his hand on his sword. Who the are you? The man grinned and showed off sharpened canines. Me. Well, you can just call me Soren. Your friendly, neighborhood bounty hunter. And you two came into town with the biggest bounty I've seen come around here in a while. Johnny now had his hand on his sword as well. If you want Naruto Aniki, you'll have to get to him over our dead bodies. The grin that appeared on Soren's face cleared the streets of everyone else around as they fled indoors. Oh, you say that like it can't be easily arranged. Johnny and Yosaku drew their swords and launched themselves at Soren from the ground, thanking Naruto mentally for keeping their weights low enough to move. They both slashed at the man who dodged, leaving them swinging at a chimney, cleaving it apart. You're pretty fast for entry-level goons. Soren said from the position formerly occupied by the two swordsmen. Better than most of the cronies I end up having to deal with, that's for sure. Yosaku launched himself from the roof. Stop talking. He missed his falling slash and cut at Soren rapidly. We are not goons. Naruto Aniki believes in us and we won't let an hole like you kill him just because you want a payday. Soren smirked as he dodged the blade strikes. He's got you brainwashed, huh? I've seen your type before. You think you're important, but the way you fight I don't see it. You're cannon fodder as far as you boss is concerned. Trust me, you were better off just staying wherever he picked you up from. Yosaku kept swinging away like a berserker. Just one hit would shut this guy up. Naruto believed in them, he knew he did. There was no other explanation for why he brought them along. He was strong enough on his own that he didn't need people to fight for him. A swing got annoyingly close to Soren, getting a frown from him. Yeah, I'm tired of that thing. He hawked a loogie that hit Yosaku's sword near its guard. The man watched in horror as the blade began to melt in front of his eyes right at the base. Yosaku dropped the sword, or what was left of it, as the guard started melting down to the handle. Soren smirked at the look on Yosaku's face. You like that? He had to divert his attention to Johnny, who attempted an attack from the rear. Ebi no sum rot claws. A green glow lined Soren's fingernails and swung at Johnny, who attempted a slash. The two attacks clashed against one another with Soren pushing him back. Johnny got his footing back but watched his sword break apart in front of his eyes, much like Yosaku's did. Before he could even speak, a fist was buried deep into his body. Johnny gasped for air with the enemy fist driven into his sternum. You know I'm trying to cut back on killing cronies, so why don't you just take a little nap for a while so I can get your captain out here for a fight? Yosaku dropped to his knees as he saw Johnny crumple to the ground in a heap. Why are you doing this? And why are you letting us live? Soren glanced back at him before walking away. I want your boss's bounty. There's no need for me to kill you when I've already beaten you so easily. Take my advice, get out of the Grand Line now. Get out any way you can, you'll both only get killed if you go any further than this. You're lucky this is the first island in paradise, lucky. With that he leapt back to the rooftops and disappeared. Yosaku looked at his destroyed sword and his unconscious friend as he clenched his fists. Even after all we've done, we're still so weak. Why does Naruto Aniki keep us around when all we do is require rescuing? With Naruto and Nojiko, Naruto walked out of a weapons store with a smile on his face and two wrapped bundles in his arms. These should be way better than those flimsy starter swords that they've been lugging around. Nojiko had a smile on her face as she followed him down the street with bags of her own purchases in her arms. You've spent a lot of money today, Naruto-kun. First on me, now on the boys. Why so loose with your wallet today? Naruto grinned at her. Do I need a reason to spoil you, Noji-chan? A pretty girl like you should be used to getting gifts from guys like me. Nojiko blushed and laughed slightly. Haha. I was never that into fooling men with my feminine wiles like my sister. I'm afraid I'm somewhat out of practice on that front. Although as long as you're being so generous I guess I'll have to take advantage of that, won't I? She gave him a playful shove and winked at him. Yes, yes. I'm a regular philanthropist. And yes, I do know what that word means before you insult my intelligence again. Naruto said as he continued walking with Nojiko down the street. What do you think the Marines are doing here anyway? You think we're near a base? It's possible, she said, putting a cute look of contemplation on her face, but I haven't even seen any in town since we got here. What could they be doing here? They haven't even acknowledged your presence yet. Naruto shrugged. I haven't done anything yet. They can't find me if I didn't even do anything to alert them to my presence in the first place. Whatever they're here for, it's not my problem. Thus by proxy it isn't your problem either. Therefore there's no need to worry your pretty little head over it. Besides, escape is just a sprint across the water away. Nojiko looked around the village for another place to stop at. You take things way too lightly, Naruto-kun. Doesn't anything ever make you get serious? Naruto gave her a humorless look. You've already seen what makes me get serious. When I get serious, bad things happen to people and massive amounts of property damage ensue. Nojiko remembered, like with Arlong. Naruto nodded. I wasn't even that serious with Arlong, because like I said, I could have killed him anytime I wanted. By the time he actually gave me a good enough excuse to ignore you and Nami-chan telling me not to do it, I had already run the scenario through my head about a dozen times. The worst combination of things possible is me being serious against someone that can actually fight back once I do. He then turned a 180 with his attitude. Hopefully you never have to see that though. Nojiko gave him an odd look. Is it really that bad? Naruto didn't look at her this time. You know how I made the tornado back in Logatown to get rid of that smoker guy? She nodded. That was me still messing around. Naruto's danger senses went off, warning him of impending aggression towards his person before he picked Nojiko up into his arms and jumped out of the way of green balls of liquid that came at him from nowhere. Naruto turned around and kept his eyes peeled for a sign of his attacker, gritting his teeth at the realization that Nojiko was with him. What a time to not bring any guns with you, sweetheart. Naruto handed the things he had bought over to her. Get somewhere out of sight until I handle this. The blue-haired girl hid at the base of a nearby alleyway, keeping her eyes open for anything that might have launched the attack. Well, the guy has such a pretty girl traveling with him too. What a lucky man. Nojiko's eyes widened as the voice came from behind her. She whipped around only to stare into the empty alleyway. What are you looking at, gorgeous? Came the same voice from right behind her once more. She could feel the grin on the man's face. Naruto was right. She really needed to start carrying her guns with her when they went ashore. Bad idea. Naruto dropped an axe kick where the man had once been standing, cracking the ground and leaving a heel-sized crater. This was a feint to get him away from Nojiko so he could keep her safe. The man sprang an FPED into the open street where Naruto could clearly see him now. Who the are you? A grin from him showed off sharp canines. Your other crewmates asked me that same thing before I kicked their ass earlier. I didn't kill them if you're worried about that. I'm here for the big fish, Mr. Seed of War, or should I say Naruto Uzumaki. He gave Naruto a mocking bow. My name is Soren, at your service. Naruto placed himself in front of Nojiko protectively. How wonderful for you. Now what the do you want with us? Soren pulled out a canteen and took a long drink. With the lady? Nothing. I'm here for you and your obscenely high bounty. I've been hanging around this island for quite a few months now and I have to say, you're the biggest potential reward I've seen come through here ever. There's probably a good reason for that, you know. Naruto said as he took in the man's appearance. Soren chuckled. Oh, I'm sure of it actually. But like I said, I really don't have any issues with your honey behind you, so you can just tell her to get out of here while the big boys settle up. Naruto looked back at Nojiko and motioned his head, telling her to get out of there. She gave him pleading eyes to let her stay, but the stern look on his face told her that arguing would do no good in this case. With one last look at Soren, who actually waved goodbye to her, she took off away from the area. Naruto kept his eyes on Nojiko to make sure she made it away with no shenanigans before moving his eyes back onto Soren. And here I was expecting you to attack me while my eyes were off of you. You really let me down on that one. You didn't even go after Noji-chan and leave yourself a sitting duck. Not the usual bad guy type, are you? Soren shook his head. No, you dodged my first attack. You're the first one to do that in quite a while. It's a good thing for you that you did too. he said while pointing at the spot where he had hit with the balls of sickly green liquid. The ground had been eaten away as if by acid. Soren cracked his neck audibly and dropped into a tiger stance. No, since you dodged it and blew my cover of surprise, I figured I would just come on out and fight you myself. No need to prolong the game of cat and mouse that was already over. And about your girl, I said that I didn't have any problems with her. It's you that I'm here for. Naruto set himself into a ready stance. Well then come and get me, Mr. Bounty Hunter. Soren rushed Naruto with his fingernails glowing green once more and took a swing at him. Naruto drew a kunai and moved into clash with him before he got a nasty surprise by way of Soren cutting right through his weapon. A wide-eyed Naruto jumped backwards, avoiding Soren's follow-up. Okay, that's not good at all. You don't even know the half of it. Soren said as he took a deep breath. Ebi no kiri, rot fog. Soren exhaled and released a green mist that came at Naruto rapidly. Seeing that nothing good would come from being caught in it, the blonde leapt to the rooftops, but not before hearing something hissing. As he looked down, he saw his sage coat melting at the bottom. Naruto cursed audibly. Got it. Shima is going to beat my when I tell her I messed this thing up again. A stupid jacket is the least of your worries right now, Uzumaki. Soren yelled as he jumped from the acid mist onto the same rooftop with his glowing claws once more. Naruto began ducking out of the way of Soren's slashes after seeing what they could do to a metal blade. In the midst of his evasive movements, Naruto flashed out a jab that caught Soren right in the face, disorienting him enough for Naruto to get away and make a few hand seals. Fuden. Datapa, wind release. Great breakthrough. The wind attack wasn't aimed at Soren, but at the mist that was hanging in the streets, as he blew it away and jumped right back down there. Naruto noticed how the acid had eaten away at the buildings, chipped siding and crumbling brick surfaces. Soren looked down from the rooftop on Naruto, dabbing at his nose which had some blood leaking from it. That was a lucky swao, Uzumaki. You're lucky that I wasn't ready for you to hit me back, or you'd be pretty bad off right now. Naruto looked around. Who randomly shoots acid everywhere? You don't do things like that with powers so dangerous. What if you hit somebody or something? Soren rolled his eyes. I was trying to hit you, duh. It's the Ebi no mi, rot fruit dude. I would probably hurt you just from touching you. Naruto pointed at him lamely. I just punched you in the face and I'm fine. Soren got a tick mark on his head. I didn't have my defense active. You. He pulled out a random capsule of yellow liquid and quickly downed it before throwing it away. I know better now. Naruto pointed. What was that? What was what? Soren asked, playing off the utterly random thing he just did. Naruto motioned to the direction he threw the capsule in. That. What the did you just drink? Or fighting and you're taking portable swaos? That's not cool. Soren frowned. It's complicated, okay. I don't see why you care so much. I'm about to kick your and get your bounty. You've got more important things to worry about right now. Soren grabbed his forearm as his entire hand started to glow green. Naruto's eye twitched. I don't like the way that looks. You're going to like the way it feels even less. Soren rushed down the side of the building to pick up more speed as he launched himself at Naruto faster than anyone else he had fought to date. Ebi no deba, rot knife. Naruto moved his head out of the way of Soren as he thrusted his hand straight out, sending it right through the wall that Naruto was standing by. Upon contact, the wall quickly corroded, starting from the point where Soren drove his hand through. Naruto, seeing a counter, swung out another punch that hit Soren in the face again, sending him flying down the road, although all wasn't well for him after he made contact. Naruto clutched his fist and started growling in pain as he saw his skin start to burn. What just happened? Soren chuckled and stood up as he rubbed his orbital bone where Naruto had hit him. Good swao, but I see you got a little taste of my eye acid. Naruto went back and forth between staring at his fist where skin was starting to flake off and Soren, who had one teardrop going down his face. Gah. Who squirts acid out of their eye? He asked angrily and in pain. Soren smirked. It's my fruit's power. I can produce powerful acid from my body. Even my fluids, such as my saliva, sweat, or tears can be a corrosive acid, as you can plainly see. Soren paused to pull a canteen from his waist to take a sip. Naruto gritted his teeth as his healing factor was just as quick acting as Soren's acid. Stop drinking stuff while we're fighting already. Soren snapped back, you don't tell me what to do whole. He puffed out his cheeks, Iba Iba no Danmaku, Rot Rot Barrage. He started shooting rapid-fire loogies at Naruto that looked like the first attacks that he dodged when the fight began. Naruto jumped off of the ground and back on the roofs, that. Enough with the acid already. Kami, I'm starting to really hate all of you guys with Akuma no Mi powers, they're like freaking Kekkei Genkai. Naruto started running back to the docks and made a single cage bunshin that immediately dispelled, what the? It finally hit him as he continued to feel his hand in agony. Duh, they're taking the damage from the acid that I have as well. Well, my clones should at least know to get their S in gear and pull the ship around. Don't run from me, Uzumaki, you can't get away. Soren ran along an adjacent rooftop. He then began launching acid bullets at Naruto across the street. Naruto bared his teeth at Soren while dodging. Don't make me have to kill you. Nojiko ran through town when she came across Yosaku with Johnny D. Bad over his shoulder. What happened to you guys? Johnny coughed. Some guy named Soren beat the crap out of us. He melted our swords. It was completely embering. Nojiko gasped. He melted your swords. How is that even possible? Yosaku cringed at the memory of how easily they were defeated. He just cut Johnny's up with his hands and spit on mine. It was like they melted or something. We were so useless. Nojiko dropped the bundle that Naruto gave her to hold. Naruto-kun is fighting the guy that you're talking about right now. Yosaku dropped Johnny as he saw Nojiko turn to run back the way she had just come from. And what are you going to do to help him? Do you even have a gun on you? He grabbed her to keep her from running. Naruto and Ikki will be fine. We just need to go back to the pier that we first came here by and wait for him. Johnny stood up and limped over to the things that Nojiko dropped. He picked up her bags of clothes and then the bundle that she dropped. What is this? He asked as it felt rather weighty. Nojiko tried to struggle out of Yosaku's grip. Are you just going to leave him there? Yosaku let out a low rumbling from his throat. Why don't you believe in Naruto and Ikki? That made her stop. What is he going to have to do to make you believe in him? He beat Arlong right in front of your eyes. He saved your village. He can walk on water and walls. He can make a tornado at will and make tidal waves with a stroke of his hands. What part of you thinks that he can't beat that guy? Johnny unwrapped the strange package and grinned widely. Naruto and Ikki. Nojiko sighed and gave Yosaku an apologetic look. I'm sorry. You're right. Naruto-kun will be fine. He'll be way better off than if I was there. Let's go wait for him to show up. Meanwhile, marine ship in the harbor, Captain Hina. A random marine yelled as he ran through the inside of the ship. Soren has been sighted at last in town. He's currently in the middle of a fight with another of his bounties. Another bounty. A woman with long pink hair said, as she walked towards the deck, which one is it to actually make Soren work so hard? Another man handed the first one a stack of flyers that he quickly began to peruse through before pulling out the right one. This one here. He handed it over to his captain. A smile came to her red. It looks like Hina will be having some fun today. With Naruto threw a handful of shuriken out at Soren, who spit his acid bullets at them, melting them in midair. Stop melting my shuriken. I haven't found anyone that can remake them yet. Soren scoffed. Well, stop throwing them, stupid. His fingernails once again glowed green as he launched himself across the street onto Naruto's rooftop, taking a swipe at him. Ebi no sum rot rot claws. Naruto dodged and watched as he took a decent chunk out of the roof with that. There's no way in you're hitting me with that, or anything, ever again. If you're still on me by the time I get to the docks, I'm going to be forced to do something that can be construed as overkill. Like what? Soren asked mockingly. Yeah, you're fast. I'm certain you can go faster, and you don't seem to be concerned at all despite being on the defensive for the entire fight, but I don't see why you're not sweating your situation right now. Naruto grinned at him, because I learned something about you devil fruit users that will make it so that you can't win. Soren raised an eyebrow. What? The ocean came into view and Naruto leapt from the rooftop, all the way over the street, all the way over the docks themselves to land on the surface of the water, where he ran a decent distance out and turned to face Soren with a smirk on his face. Nah. You can't chase me anymore, motherer. That's not fair. I can't get into the water. Soren stopped yelling and blinked before he pointed at him. How the air you doing that? Naruto jumped and did a mid-air heel C, because I'm awesome. Soren opened his mouth to retort before a figure in a dark pink suit ped him swiftly. He then found himself in iron shackles. Oh, what now? Hey. I'm fighting here. Naruto looked over at a woman with long pink hair and tick. She wore a dark pink suit with a white blouse underneath, brown gloves and brown boots. Hina's got you. Naruto stared blankly at the woman that had just shown up and shackled Soren. Who are you? She looked out at Naruto. Hina is Hina. Naruto nodded. Understood, but who are you? She got a tick mark on her head and pointed at herself. Hina is Hina. Naruto's mouth formed an, oh, why the air you here? Can't you see that me and the bald kid have a gripe? Soren agreed. Yeah, get out of here and let me get my bounty lady. This isn't any issue of yours. Hina shook her finger in a disputive manner, but it is Hina's business. You two are fugitives of the world government and the Marines, and it is Captain Hina's job to bring you in, dead or alive. Naruto gave her a deadpan look. Well, you're stronger than the first Marine I met, so I'm getting a better opinion of their skills, but if your only power is putting shackles on somebody, then you had better make tracks before you piss one of us off, dear. Too late. Soren said in a low tone. So you're a Marine, are you? And a captain at that. How wonderful for me. Soren's body began to generate a hissing sound as the air around his immediate body began to sizzle. The shackles around him melted off of his body. Let me show you what I think of Marines. Halt. Surrender now or we'll be forced to open fire. Soren grinned darkly as a group of Marines came upon the scene with their rifles pointed at him and Naruto. How about no? EB no aim, rot rain. Soren fired a large burst of acid into the air. It exploded over the heads over everyone. Naruto, being used to Soren melting everything he ever tried an attack on, and Hina, not being stupid, took a hint and hightailed it out of there as acid rain began to fall onto the heads of the hapless Marines. They screamed in agony as their clothing and skin began being eaten through. Soren nodded in accomplishment with a smile on his face. Ah, the sounds of justice. The only good Marine is a dead Marine. Dying is okay, dead is better. Soren had his nails glowing green again as he began systematically ripping into the Marines who were still screaming in agony. All they could do was be cut down by the young man who was cutting through them like they were wheat. Naruto watched from a distance atop another roof. Man, how incredibly random. He's having a blast down there. I think he forgot all about me. He then jumped away just as Hina attempted to attack him from behind. I wish you would have taken after his shining example and left me alone. Hina frowned as the sounds of Soren destroying her men still rang out. Soren is a monster as far as Hina is concerned. He's nothing but a killer. Naruto motioned back towards him. He seemed just fine and perfectly sane to me before you showed up. I mean, yes, he did try to kill me and everything, but by now I'm conditioned to that response. No one just FA switch and becomes a random psycho killer just like that. And anyway, why are you fighting me? I'm not down there turning your men into puddles. Hina tugged on her gloves while staring Naruto down. You still have a bounty and you are still a pirate. Soren will still be there after I'm done with you. Really? Naruto questioned as he pointed behind Hina. The pink-haired woman ducked a swipe from Soren intended for her head. This is wonderful. Now Hina can capture you both at the same time and avoid having to chase one of you or the other. Awase Bowery, lined kimono feather cage. She surrounded the area around Naruto and Soren with a fence-like cage of bars that came from her arms before restricting them. Naruto jumped out to safety while Soren remained and allowed himself to be restrained again. You just don't get it, do you? You can't hold me with this. Iba no haifu, rot skin. Soren melted the restraints with the acid that he generated from his sweat. Now die for me. Iba no danmaku, rot barrage. Soren released a mib amount of acid bullets from his mouth that Hina dodged for dear life. Alright, I'm sick of this. Naruto was standing on the street making hand seals. I can see my ship, and my hand hurts like a mofo. Time for me to go. Suigen. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water release. Water dragon jutsu. The two preoccupied combatants were caught off guard as a mib dragon, made of water as the name of the attack indicated, flew at them both. They dodged but ended up getting drenched in seawater, paralyzing them both. On Naruto's ship, Nojiko looked over the ship's edge at Starter Island, nervously watching through binoculars. Where is he? He had time for his clones to come ashore and find us. He should have beaten us back. Suddenly she gasped as a sea spray shrouded figure ripped through the waves. Naruto-kun. The figure burst from the water and landed on deck. Yo. Johnny came up and slapped him hard on the back. Yo yourself. What took so long? Naruto grinned. I brought a souvenir. Naruto held up an utterly drenched and unconscious Soren. All three crew members back away from Soren, who was being held up by his collar by Naruto. Yosaku pointed at him. What the air you thinking bringing him here? Naruto stroked his chin. Well, I figured that since I saved his he would owe me one. I mean, I could have just left him there to keep fighting that Hina lady, but as they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or is he my enemy? Naruto shrugged. Either way, dragging him with me seemed way more fun than just leaving him there. Soren spit out a amount of seawater. Dude, I'm going to kick your when I get dry. Naruto smirked down at him. Well then it's a good thing I have the perfect position for you on our ship, isn't it? Naruto-kun. Nojiko ran up to Naruto who was manning the helm. Look. She held out her wrist. The log pose finally locked onto an island. We can get started now. Naruto grinned at her. Well, that's good. Naruto walked towards the edge of the front of the ship and yelled down. Hey Soren, we have a destination. Isn't that great? Soren was tied to the bow of the ship, his body half submerged in the water. Go yourself. Naruto and Nojiko shared a look of amusement. Doesn't he just make the best figurehead? You see Noji-chan. And you were getting on me about decorating the ship. Omake. Soren randomly pulled out a canteen and took a sip. I'm here for you and your obscenely high bounty. I've been hanging around this island for a while and I have to say, you're the biggest potential reward I've even seen come through here. Naruto watched Soren drink from his canteen and smacked his. Hey, I know we're most likely about to fight and everything, but can I get a sip of that? Soren raised his eyebrow and stared down at him. Do you backwash? Naruto scoffed and rolled his eyes. Everyone backwashes genius. Soren twisted his face in thought. Let me think about it. No. Go yourself. Naruto whined. Oh come on. Don't be such a little girl about this. I haven't had a sip of anything all day and you're just standing there, lording it over me. Give me a sip so we can kick each other's ass. Soren turned around, turning his back on Naruto before mockingly taking another sip. Naruto's eye twitched. Fine, you big baby, I'll overhead then. How about that? A grin came to his face as he caught the canteen. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.